Howdy, everybody. It's old Cody over here from the Cowboys of the Osage podcast. Hey, today we're not coming from the Ben Johnson Cowboy Museum located in historic downtown Pawhuska, Oklahoma. We're on the road. Me and Jimbo. Jimbo, my co-host, the rodeo historian himself. Jimbo, who do we have today and where are we?
Hey, Cody. We're in Cole County, Oklahoma at the home of Mr. Pake McEntire. You know, Pake's a third-generation roper. His dad was three-time world champion steer roper, 57, 58, and 61. And a lot of people might not remember, but his grandpa, John McEntire, was a great old steer roper, a real pioneer in the rodeo business. He was the world champion in 1934. And Pake followed in their footsteps, a very accomplished roper, 2 times national finalist. He he won the Ben Johnson, won Pendleton, won Post Texas, I don't know where all, placed everywhere. And something about him that's hard to believe, he's the only guy I know that could win left-handed and then switched hands and won right-handed. Now, that's pretty hard to do. And he was also a country music singer, and somebody said he had some sisters that could sing a little bit. But anyway, Pake, thanks for inviting us down today.
You're welcome, and y'all welcome to Cole County at Cairo, Oklahoma, halfway between Colgate and Wardville, Oklahoma. I got to tell you a quick story, Jimbo, about this switching hands. Right after I switched over to right-handed after I got off the road with RCA Records in the late 80s, I went to Aspermont to a jackpot out there. And here come Tom Gibson up with this old codger. He said, "Hey, Pake, I want to introduce you to so-and-so." And I shook hands with this gentleman. And Tom said, "You know, old Pake here, he's ambidextrous." And this gentleman said, "Really? What does that mean?" He said, "He can't rope with either hand."
You could, though. That's amazing. I just can't imagine right in the middle of your career. I mean, that'd be like, Cody, that'd be like me and you just decide to start roping left-handed.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
I can only pick my nose right-handed. I can't even pick my nose left-handed, Jimbo.
I can't imagine.
Can you imagine doing that? This guy took my money with both hands.
I know it. Isn't that
handily?
Something?
Well, you took my money more than I took yours.
I don't know about that, Pake. Every time he decided to come out of retirement again, he'd just start taking everybody's money, then he'd retire again, Jimbo.
Right.
Or go back on the road singing, or...
Well, I was right there next to the fence when he won the Ben Johnson right-handed.
Well, thank you. That's been so long ago that it just kind of was in a different life.
Yeah. That had been, what was it, 89 or something?
Let's see, that would have been in 90.
90.
Been in 90, yeah. Yeah, and I was still a bee roper in the club roping during that time.
Right.
And the next week, that's when they had ropings, you know, the club ropings at the fairgrounds. And me and Rocky was sitting over there that next week, and they'd stopped the roping, they're having a meeting over there. And Rocky said, "You know what they're doing, don't you?" I said, "What?" He said, "They're kicking you out of the bee roping." He said, "If I was you, I'd go over there and complain and plead my case." I said, "Well, it's kind of hard to do with that $6,500 they gave me from the Ben Johnson in my pocket." Right. So I think I'll just shut up.
Pake.
What?
Let's go all the way back. Let's go all the way back to your grandpa.
Okay.
Did you ever hear where he kind of got his start with roping?
Yes, in 1920, he and Wolf Markham went to a roping near Pittsburgh, kind of in between Kiowa and Pittsburgh. And ironically, they saw their first steer roping there that Jake Weaver put on. And they just pinned these cattle up to the north in this corner and just run them out across the flat there in the grass and tied them down. And they kept time with an alarm clock. And so they saw their first airplane there too, and so they knew that they had to start doing that when they saw them boys tying them steers down.
Did he have a mentor of any kind when he would get started roping, or did he just self-taught?
Back then it was all outside, no fences, and everybody's cows run together. So he and Wolf, they got him some ropes and some tie strings, and they just would go out on these prairies and see these cattle, and they just bail to them and just go to roping them around the neck. It didn't matter. Tie them down. And things didn't turn out very good because they wasn't set up for the best arena conditions. Well, one time here come the law with some neighbors complaining about them roping their cows and milk cows and all that stuff. And they snuck out the back and hid their ropes and tie strings. He said, "We wasn't bad boys, we just wanted to rope."
How did he get to the rodeos? I heard that you used to ride to a lot of rodeos back then.
They did. Back during the 101, when he lived over there by Stonewall, right back over here, a little town called Lula, Oklahoma. Well, he is about 180 or so miles. Well, he would go by Floyd Gales at Okmulgee and stay all night with him. And then they'd ride together to the 101. He said one time he missed his steer and had his horse tied up over there at the fence. Missed his steer, went out the back, come by and picked up his horse and headed back home.
That's a pretty good ride from here to the 101. Wasn't it?
Absolutely. That's wanting to rope. He used to look at my little old half-ton pickup with a camper and a side-by-side trailer, and he said, "Man, if I had a rig like that when I was your age, I'd never come home."
Huh. Did he ever put his horses on trains?
Yes. Yes, they did that quite a bit. And anyway, they could get their old raggedy Model A cars and a trailer. One time, Daddy said when his little old kid, Grandpa was getting ready to go to a calf roping out at Ardmore, about 85 miles away. And he looked in the trailer floor, and there's a big old hole right there where the horse is going to step, where he had to stand, bigger than a basketball. He said, "Pappy, you better put something over that hole to get his foot down in." He said, "No, he won't." Well, went over there and roped in the roping, and he stopped back by Davis, Oklahoma to eat supper. Pulled in this little old Greasy Spoon Cafe. And when he stopped out there in the parking lot, somehow he lost the tailgate off his trailer, and his horse just backed out of the trailer. Never stuck his foot down in the hole and never backed out of the trailer and was hauling with no tailgate.
Don't you know those are some pretty fancy trailers back then?
That must have been a smart horse. Both seemed like a bad idea. Don't step in that hole. Don't back out of that trailer.
Yeah, he took care of himself, didn't he?
Yeah.
Very self-proficient that horse was.
Where all did he go? I mean, how would he have got to Cheyenne?
I really don't know, but he would go up to Boston Gardens and Madison Square Garden, and we've got pictures of him and Everett Shaw when they were up in New York rodeoing, and they didn't have a hat. So they didn't have any cowboy hats up there, so they had these little derbies. Well, when they came back down and went to Fort Worth, they were still wearing those derby hats. And that picture in there was the vagrant I was telling you about. Mm-hmm. Well, him and Shaw sitting there with these New York hats on, little derbies, still down here in Fort Worth, Texas, in 33, I think it was.
Huh.
Were they traveling partners?
Yeah. In fact, they went to Pendleton together the first time.
Shaw. Not everybody knows who you're talking about, even though they should. You're talking about Everett Shaw.
Everett Shaw.
The great roper from around here.
From Stonewall. And they went together the first time in the early 30s. And Shaw was pretty young. Grandpap was a little older. And the story goes was that they were getting ready to rope, and they had a rope bag. And they looked in there, Shaw did, and he said, there was rope missing. He said, McEntire said, "Where's our other rope?" Said, "We only got one rope." Said, "I gave it to that feller over there. And he said, "But McEntire said, we just had two ropes." He said, "Yeah, but Shaw, he didn't have one."
Yeah. I mean, Dick Truitt was right in the middle of that.
Oh, yes. Dick was one of those underrated steer ropers like we were talking about, your granddad.
Yeah. Dick was Everett Shaw's brother-in-law, Cody, for those people that don't know. And he was an old-time bulldogger, steer roper, calf roper, did it all.
You bet. That's Nell's brother.
Yep.
She was a special lady over there. She lived a long time after Everett Shaw died, and I got to meet her a few times because my dad used to travel with Neil, her grandson.
That's right.
Neil Worrell, and we'd stop by and see old Nell, and she'd always cook Neil up a big old bunch of good food in there. It was a good time and a really neat lady to get to know.
Absolutely. Big rodeo cowboy wife that was very supportive, all her family.
Yep.
What all events did your grandpa do when he'd enter those rodeos back east? Did they have the steer open at Madison Square Garden and Boston Garden?
No, they did not. But he liked to enter as much as he had entry fees for. And a lot of times he would pick up broncs for entry fees. And they would sleep in horse stalls, and they just scrounged and just got there and did the best they could. It just depends on how much money he had to enter with. But he did rope calves, rope steers, bulldog, rode saddle broncs, rode bulls. But he said saddle bronc riding was his favorite event. He said that's the most fun.
Did he win any big championships riding saddle broncs at any of the big rodeos?
No. And see, he won world championship in 1934, when if you won Cheyenne, you were the world champion.
Yeah, there were a few years where Madison Square Garden, if you won it was considered world champion. Then it went to Cheyenne. Then it went to all around until they started keeping track of the money.
I tell you, Clyde Burke, that got killed at Denver Hazen, they said, Tim Prather told me one time that he won the Madison Square Garden up there one time. They was interviewing him afterwards, and he said, "Can you tell us what your greatest accomplishment is in rodeo?" He said, "Yeah, winning the Velma picnic."
That's the oldest continuous celebration in the state of Oklahoma, Jimbo. Velma
heard
picnic.
of it, never been there.
Yeah, it's a big one.
They got a good steer rope in there. A bunch of good folks in that area.
Yeah, I roped steers there.
Don't get much better than the Velma picnic, really. But that's as big. That was that fellow's biggest accomplishment.
Yeah,
huh?
and then people up there kind of roll their eyes a little bit. They didn't know what the Velma picnic was in New York City.
Boy, that would have been something to be in that rodeo back in those days, though. Did you ever get to go with your dad?
No, but there was something like 35 and 38 performances of that thing. They'd stay up there a full month.
Yeah, and the kids couldn't get to go because it was during the school year.
Yeah, they couldn't.
So I think my dad and Joe just got to go once or twice.
Yeah.
Because it was in October.
I can only imagine some of the shenanigans happening in New York City with all these cowboys. I've been to Pendleton and Cheyenne and seen plenty of things happen. I can only imagine.
Yeah, it was.
You stick all these cowboys in the middle of New York City. Some of the fun things that might have happened.
They said they were there so long that those horses would get stall crazy, and said they would do it with each other's horses, like have a slicker or something and be hiding and have him ride up to a stall, and they jump out and try to scare the horse to try to keep him from being so barn crazy.
They kept them down underneath, I think. They had stalls down underneath the
I've heard that.
Madison Square Garden. My dad, once when he was there, he said they'd let you in about 9 o'clock in the morning. That was his job, to go there and get the horse and exercise him,
Yeah.
I heard an old rodeo story from there one time. There was an old calf roper, I guess, named Junior Vaughn from out in New Mexico. I guess he was really, really, really good. One of the best calf ropers to ever live. Underrated guy. But he was also a very bad alcoholic. And I guess he was en route to win Madison Square Garden. And they got him drunk and hid his boots from him. And he showed up, and they told me he won it barefooted. Went and won the calf roping barefooted at Madison Square Garden because they had stolen his boots, because they knew that if this guy showed up, he was probably going to win it. Have you ever heard anything like that?
No, but I've heard Junior Vaughn's stories. But also about up there, they had the jerk down rule before it was ever down here in the calf roping. And they'd take them horses that wouldn't stop. So they brought a horse down here to rope at Fort Worth, and Bill Lowe had this horse. And might have been Bill Murray was going to try to borrow this horse to ride him. And he said, "Yeah, you can ride him, but let me tell you something. When you rope this calf and you get over in that stirrup, now you think he ain't going to stop, and sure enough, he won't."
Yeah. But, up there, those calves, they'd buy them in the spring and use them. And then by fall, they were pretty good size. And they were smart, too, most of them. Yeah. And you couldn't jerk them down, and they'd meet you halfway up the rope.
Oh, man, that'd be good watching.
Jim, and they had a buzzer. I forget what the buzzer was, but you had a time to time, and it was a long time.
Long time.
And Jim said some of them bulldoggers, big tough bulldoggers, would get in the calf roping because they were there, and they'd back down the rope. Because those calves, they're scared of those calves, They'd hit you right in the chest, some of them.
And
Well-
even down here at Fort Worth, they were big because Daddy said he won the first go round down there one time with a 16.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Jim roped one around the horns one time. He's a heifer that nobody won a quarter on, and he roped her around the horns on purpose where he could handle her and place her around.
Well, I've seen some pictures of your family roping at Madison Square Garden, and there were some big old calves
Yeah.
they were roping there.
Yeah.
That one of your family member that's on the in Life magazine.
Yeah, Pat Parker.
Yeah, Pat Parker. That's a
Yeah.
big old brindle calf he's roping. Big old
Yep.
Bramer calf in that picture. It's a good one.
Yep.
It's a good one. Did your grandpa ever do much of the wild cow milking back then?
I don't know. You know, there was one tale, I was up there in the Northwest when Daddy was a little kid, that Grandpap was in the bulldogging, and it was during the rodeo, and Daddy told this story. They were all sitting around the fence, and Grandpap was underneath this old steer, and he was just spread out in the back end, just stood up, and he wouldn't tilt. I mean, this one went on for a long time. And whoever Daddy was sitting by said, "Hey, Clark, run out there and get him by the tail." So he ran out there and got this big old steer by the tail and tailed him over, and the crowd just roared. Now, that was illegal. He didn't get a time. but
Right.
It was
But
good for show.
Got him down on the ground, though, didn't
Yeah.
What about? Yeah, you had me confused there for 1 second. Now it's all coming together in my head, Pake.
Okay. Did I tell that right? Did I?
he? Well, I followed you. I don't know. Cody's listening.
He's thinking about the next question.
Yeah, I was thinking about something else. I was thinking about something else, Pake. I apologize.
That's all right.
Gosh, dang, caught me at a moment of weakness there. Wasn't paying attention. I stay in trouble with Lauren all the time, not paying attention about different things. So your grandpa, he'd go to Madison Square Garden. Would he make Pendleton?
Oh yeah, Boston Garden, Pendleton, all those big rodeos. See, they were raised around here. Where we're sitting right here, his mom and daddy raised 9 kids right over here within a mile. Now, daddy's mother's family was right over here about a mile. So we're sitting right in the middle of where those two families were, big families. And they were farmers. They would farm these old fields and stuff, and just enough to scratch out a cornbread living. Well, Grandpap didn't want that. He wanted to go to Pendleton. He wanted to go to Cheyenne. He wanted to go to Boston Gardens and Madison Square Garden, and he wanted to see things. And he had to really buck the odds because the old man wanted to keep him right here and plow them fields. And he said, "No, I ain't doing that. I'm getting out of here." So he became a rodeo cowboy.
That's how a lot of them started, just wanting to get away from the ranch
Yeah.
and wanted to see the sights.
Yeah, they wasn't backward or nothing.
Right.
And I think the entertainment deal with Reba, Susie, and I, and Daddy, handed down from Grandpap's way of thinking, because, to be an entertainer, you got to be on stage. You can't be backwards. You can't be shy.
Yes, sir.
You got to crave that attention.
Your grandpa really wanted Clark to be a roper, didn't he?
Yes. He told Daddy, he said, "Clark, if you're in the practice pen and you look over your shoulder and you see the house is on fire, you just keep on roping. Me and your ma will put it out."
Yeah, I've heard that.
Did your grandpa ever win Pendleton?
No, he won second in the bulldogging there one time, but no, he never did. This table we're sitting on right here around was given to Grandpap and my grandma when they were married in 1924, and it was used then.
Oh, we know.
This table right here.
This thing's seen a lot of action, hadn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is a table where all the champions, all the rodeo cowboys would come in to Limestone Gap and eat at. This table right here.
Yeah. I was telling Pake, when I was a kid, they always announced Clark from Limestone Gap, Oklahoma. I don't know where that's at, but that's where, he said they don't even have a post office there, but
No.
that's where he was from.
But I'll bet money that your granddad ate at this table.
Probably.
Had to have.
Had to have.
Yeah.
If you're rodeoing back then, you had to pass
Yep.
through and see
Yeah.
what was going on if you're down in this direction.
Yep.
Buck asked Daddy, said, "Daddy, how come you eat so fast?" He said, "Well, I was raised up with all them cowboys. If you didn't eat fast, you wouldn't get enough, because they'd eat it up."
How many times did your dad win the world?
3.
Again? 3 times.
Yeah,
57, 58, and 61.
correct.
Thank you, rodeo historian.
Yeah, and he beat Joe. Was just lucky enough to beat Joe Snively in 61 by $94.
That was the closest race at that time.
Yeah, it was. And we were at Delbert's funeral, and I walked up to Joe and showed him that buckle because that's the one I wanted. Because I went with him that summer and stuff for me and my cousin and a friend. And we stayed gone about 6 weeks. And Joe knew exactly how that came about, even with Clark winning Cheyenne and Joe winning second and Sonny going out, who was seated in first. And Joe told me that all Don McLaughlin had to do in the finals there at Laramie was to catch his last steer to move Clark out of 4th place in the average. But he missed this steer, and his first loop hung on one horn. And instead of taking it off the saddle horn, he pulled his second one and roped him. And when he went to the end of it, his first rope was shorter, and it pulled the second rope off his head and let Clark win 4th in the average to let him win the world.
That's something.
Well, it's Kurt Robbins to say that's one of the many intangibles of steer roping right there.
And Joe, he remembered that just like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
Both deals.
Yeah.
Well, you probably would too if that's what cost you the world championship. You might remember that one run that one guy had that one time.
Yeah,
sure.
and Daddy didn't have a very good finals. I think he placed in one go-around and won that 4th. But Joe was hot. But see, Daddy won Cheyenne. He won second at Pendleton that year. That was when he was in that picture in there on that steer head. That was on Kelly Corbin's Heel Fly.
Oh, okay.
Horse that Earl Corbin bought that Shaw and Ike trained. And that's what he rode at the finals. But Daddy didn't have a good finals, but Joe did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he won the average that year.
Yeah, they were neck and neck.
Yeah.
Them old horses like that, they used to last a lot longer, it seems like old Heel Fly and
Yeah.
a lot of the horses all the way through maybe the 90s, and then
Yeah, they didn't brush them and overfeed them. They rode them and used them. That's where the good horses were.
Yeah.
And Ike was big on that. I said, Daddy, how did Ike Root have so many good horses? Was he a great horse trainer? He said, no, he just used them.
Yeah.
He used them. Had 12 guys on old Bullet at Pendleton one time.
holy moly.
Yeah.
Boy, that guy was a rodeo cowboy to the core, wasn't he?
Hey, me and him won a team roping one time. He was I was 14 and he was 74. There was 60 years difference in our age. I wished I'd kept that belt buckle, but I lost it. As at Buffalo.
Was that a Dally team roping or was it a tie down team
Well,
roping?
they let him tie on because he was heeling, and I was turning them left-handed this way, and he could run in there and rope. He said, if you can rope with a clothesline. And he wasn't used to cattle going that way, but he'd run in there and, at least get 1 foot. We won it.
Pake, every time we interview somebody who's old enough to remember Sonny Davis, I always have to ask them, what would Sonny Davis tie these steers in today?
It's funny about world champions and winners. They'll adjust to win. I don't care if they're roping elephants or day-old baby calves. They're going to, people like Schott and Sonny and Don and Olin, they're going to adjust to win. And Jim Snively and Joe Snively, they're going to adjust. I don't care what it is. It's kind of like they say, they're going to divide all the money up in the United States. Well, in 10 years, the successful people will have it all again. Well, Sonny was way before his time. Walter Arnold told me one time that at Lubbock in the slack, that he threw his hands up and the secretary was calling out the times. She said 8-6. He said, wind the watches. Sonny was very funny.
Yeah.
I loved that guy.
He had a high-pitched voice, seemed
Very
like,
high.
that I remember. He was a great big old fella.
He was just so big and athletic, and his motor, he just didn't have any slowdown in him. If he was leading the roping by 20 seconds, he's going to go for the downs on that.
Yeah, and he roped that way.
Yeah, that's just the way.
Yeah, I've seen him try to safe up and go out numerous times. We all have. And but one time at San Angelo, when the roping fiesta in that little narrow box, we was all back there watching to get out, and here comes Sonny and old Remus. Old Remus' head is that big. He said, wouldn't you like to have his head full of nickels? And he got in there, old Remus got to jumping around. He said, watch his ass, boys, I got his head. And down there another time, I come up to him after I'd roped, and I said, Sonny, I want to ask you something. Of course, I'd known him since I was a little old kid. And what is it? I said, I didn't have a wrap around all three legs. Should I go tell that flagger? He said, heck no. Said they'll cheat you one of these days. Now that's a nice version of the way he would probably say it.
Right.
Yeah, an old guy told me one time on a deal about like that, said you'll win a few, lose a few, they'll give you a few, and they're definitely gonna get you on a few. So just keep that in mind.
Yes, it'll average out.
And they didn't say it just like that either, but
yeah,
you get the point.
Yes, I think our listeners will get the point also.
You know, growing up in the rodeo world like you did, what's some of your early memories about traveling with your family to the rodeos like Cheyenne and some of the others?
Well, one thing is they stayed in them old cheap hotels. And like Daddy always said, if the guy at the front desk ever went to counting heads, then we just drove on. You know, because it's $2 or $3.
Oh, yeah, it was the same way for us.
In an old ceiling
only two
fan,
people in here.
No air conditioner, and we stayed at the Edwards Hotel there in downtown Cheyenne. And the old Edwards, the people who owned that hotel, they reserved it for mainly Okies, because we didn't tear up nothing. And they didn't want the riffraff, they call it, in there during that week. And
we're talking about Okies here?
Well,
okay.
No.
I believe you.
But they like the rodeo cowboys from Oklahoma. And I never will forget when Reba tells this story a lot. They had this kind of like a drugstore floor there in the lobby of this place, of this old hotel. And nobody had any money to go to the night show or go downtown or spend money, so everybody sat around in the lobby telling stories, visiting with each other. Well, one time it got deathly quiet. Everybody just quit talking. I looked, and Ike while he was walking through the door, drunker than a skunk. It was deathly quiet. He just walked right up through the middle of me, walked up the stairs. As soon as he got upstairs, everybody went back talking again. And that is where they wanted me and Reba to sing, and one of us sang "You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog," and the other one sang "Jesus Loved Me," and they pitched quarters or nickels or pennies, whatever it was, on the floor to us. And I guess that was probably our first paying gig.
Yep.
Yeah.
At the Edwards Hotel.
Edwards Hotel.
Cheyenne, Wyoming, during Frontier Days.
Yes, sir.
That'd be a great first gig and a great last gig, honestly.
Yeah, it would. And we were there this summer, and I showed Tommy where that old hotel set and everything, and I went in that old Western store where Dean Merritt owned there at one time, and this girl was talking about the ghost inside of it, and said, "You want to see something strange?" And I said, "Always." And so, come back here. Right in this corner, there was a cap sitting there that would move. I said, "Is there something under it?" Pick it up and look at it. It was just sitting on a frame, but that thing was moving like that. And there was no air blowing it, no nothing. Said it does it all the time. Is that strange or what?
Sounds strange to me, Pake.
I've been in that Western store. I never knew about the cat.
Yeah,
Crazy.
me either. Y'all ever seen a ghost?
Probably not.
Not sure, Pake. Probably not.
I've only seen one. It's a short story. You want to hear it?
Well, yeah, you started this story. Let's get it going.
All right. We had a place over here, 6,500 acres. Well, there's actually 12,000 acres of it that the Hunt brothers, that cornered the silver market, back in the, they owned this. And we were going over there. We'd pinned some bulls up the evening before, and we was going to cut them the next morning. Well, there's a boy living in that house, and he was going to have somebody help us cut these bulls the next morning. I go by there and pick him up, And we go to this barn, put some hay on this truck, go out in this hay meadow and feed these cattle. As we were coming back toward the house, there were some cattle off to the right in a separate pasture coming toward us. There was a guy, like in a 1940-something hat, a brown khaki jacket with khaki breeches with a stick in his hand, poking at the ground, walking along with these cattle. So I asked my friend there, I said, is that the guy that's going to help us today? And he said, where? And we looked back over there and he was gone. We go to the house and there's a fat kid with a t-shirt come out of the house. Never seen one before, never seen one since.
What about aliens?
Nope. Nope. Never seen one of them either.
All your late night drives?
Nope. Nope.
I believe you. I was just asking you about the aliens.
And I've heard truck drivers seen little green men dancing on the dash, but never seen nothing like that.
That could be that trucker speed kicking in after a few days of driving.
I believe your ghost story. I mean, I don't say I don't believe in ghosts or do, but I'm open-minded about it, for sure.
I am too, Jimbo. I just hope I don't ever see one. That's what I'm hoping. We went through that haunted mansion at Disney World last year. That's all I needed. That's all I needed.
You get spooked?
Oh, yeah. Hell. Scared of snakes, sharks, and ghosts.
And your mother.
You know.
And my mom.
And your mom.
She's
yeah,
mean. She's a mean
that.
booger.
I've seen her mad.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, you know what I would add to that? Rats.
I don't like them.
I don't either. If they would just slow down, I'd be all right with them.
Those things can chew about through anything.
Oh, I hate them.
I've been in some old farmhouses and stuff and seen where they chewed literally through the wall into another room to see what was in there.
Yeah, that's right. Let's get back talking about rodeoing.
You got it. Heck with the rats and aliens and ghosts.
Yeah.
So, what would you do when you were a kid, like up at Cheyenne, but when you wasn't getting your first music going? Did you guys hit the carnival? Did you watch the rodeo all day? What did you rope the dummy like we did behind the stands?
Yes, I remember vividly in 1961 when I was 8 that we were back behind the stands, and people like Charlie Lynn and Jim Davis and Ab Deacons and a lot of other kids. Houston Evans' kid, can't remember his name, but we'd be back there roping and everything, and they called Clark McEntire in the short go. I didn't know what he went in setting. I just run around there, stuck my fingers through that chain link fence.
I remember it.
Right? Watched him rope. He run one weight off down there at the camera pit. And, okay, tied him down. I run back there. I didn't know he won it. But it was strange. He had priced that little horse called Redwood before the rodeo for $1,500. Now, you think, well, that's kind of cheap. Well, it took $3,400 or $3,500 to win the world back then. See? Well, that's half of what you would win. Like if they win $100,000 nowadays.
That's half of a year.
Yeah, that's like saying, okay, I'm gonna price my horse for $50,000. A lot of guys would do that. Well, this little old horse was kind of crazy. And you couldn't ride him in the box if anybody was standing around or inside of it or up on the back of the box. He had to lead him in there, put him in the corner, and then get on him. Well, this guy said, I want to see how he does before I buy him. Well, we slept in the horse stall the whole week there. Me and Daddy, Gary Thompson, and Mike Miller, local boys. They were like 15 and 13. I was 8. We broke like 3 bales of straw, put some blankets on top of it, and stayed the whole week in the stalls, them old wooden stalls there.
I bet that was a good time, wasn't it?
Oh, man. Them old horses pawed the stalls all night long, but long toward the end of the week, you got used to it. But the best part about it, everybody would come and feed their horse twice a day and then come by and visit us. We got more visiting than anybody. Well,
you were talking to all those big guys too, you know. Anybody who's anybody, the golden age of rodeo, you're sitting right there just BSing with them all day. Every day.
A lot has happened around those stalls. Like in the 70s, one time I was riding my horse by there and saw Dean Oliver crawling out of the back of a station wagon. I said, Dean, what's the deal? There wasn't any rooms downtown or nothing. He said, well, yeah, but they wanted $35 and I wasn't going to give that. Yeah.
I could tell you a few stories around them stalls, but they would kick us off of YouTube and Facebook, so I'm not going to say them.
Well, the being around the rodeo, there's a lot more fun there than there actually is to watch the rodeo. But I was up there this year, and I got to say they had a really good rodeo this year. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I haven't been up there in 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
They've changed a lot in the last 5 or 6 years.
It sure has. And I'll tell you, those girls riding them saddle broncs, I mean, they just get driven right into that dirt and get up looking for their hat.
Yeah.
They had women's bronc riding this year.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
Yeah, and they had boys steer riding, riding them 8-weight steers.
Oh,
And they
wow.
had the rookie bronc riding, but they used to call that the amateur bronc riding.
Yeah.
Now it's called the rookie.
And
It's been called the rookie for quite some
Okay,
time.
but I mean, back in the day, it was amateur.
and boy, they wouldn't wait. I mean, as soon as the pickup guys got him off, here come another one. That's the way all of them ought to be.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely a Wild West show.
Yeah, it's good watching.
One of the last Wild West shows out there in
And the
Cheyenne, Wyoming.
wild horse race.
They brought it back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
they quit having it for a while.
My dad was telling me that, and you might have heard this story, but they'd always get some horses loose, and they'd come back in the arena and back and forth, and Shote would forefoot them with that old steel horse, and they'd just end on them. He thought that was, and they warned him several times not to do that, and he kept doing it. And they said, if you do that again, you're not coming back to Cheyenne.
One time, we was on the racetrack on that south end, and with this saddle bronc rider, his horse jumped the camera pit down there on that corner, and well, here he comes south, and I looked and saw him. I jumped off and cinched up. Well, I took off running, and here he come right up beside of me. And I never had picked up anybody riding a bucking horse before, but his horse was running away. And I said, "You want off?" And he said, so I said, "Well, get a hold." I didn't think about getting a buck rein. I didn't care about the horse, but I got the guy off.
Do you remember your first time you ever roped at Cheyenne?
71. Yeah, I graduated that May, and got to rope at Pendleton and Cheyenne both that year, the first year, 71.
Pake, when you were young, roping the bales of hay or the steer heads or whatever, did your grandpa or dad ever try to get you to rope right-handed?
I asked Randy Burchett this about 6 months before he died. I said, "Randy, you've known me all my life." He said, "Oh, yeah. I was around Everett Shaw, Clark McEntire, John McEntire, Don McLaughlin, Sonny Davis, Olin Young, all of those past world champions, Jim Snively. Not one of those guys ever hinted to me that I needed to rope right-handed."
Should have broke your arm.
And
your
so,
left one.
I did. That's another story. And so Randy said, "Why no, they didn't want you beating them."
He ropes horns just as good as anybody anywhere with that left hand, Jimbo.
Well, yeah.
And just cracks
That
a
was
knot off
that
of
was a
him.
natural hand.
I know. It's just, it's
Yeah,
amazing
but
to watch him.
See, about 2 weeks before I started in the first grade at Limestone Gap, I broke my arm riding calves in 2 places between my elbow and my wrist. And they put it in a cast all the way to my armpit. Well, when I went to school, they put me to writing right-handed because I couldn't write with a cast. And that's why I write so terrible nowadays, even today. But the worst thing that ever happened to me was ever winning a dime left-handed. And I told Tim Prather this the other day. And Jim put on them great ropings down there at Post for 10 years. And he said, why do you say that? I said, because if I'd never won anything, I'd change sooner.
Yeah.
Think about it. But I thought I could beat anybody when they let me win Post twice.
Yep.
72 and 74. And ironically, Daddy won it in 71. But 25-foot score, the cattle weighed 770-some pounds. Tim thought they weighed 8, but I remember 775. But they were huge. And I rode a little old horse weighing 900 pounds that we bought from Jedro over here at Ada. We lined up across there with that introduction across there. I felt like I was standing on the ground. This little horse was so small. Sandy Pin, 25-foot score. I thought, I hope I don't get killed.
Did you ever go to that roping, Jimbo?
No, never was.
Post Texas, what?
No.
OS Ranch Roping and
OS.
art show and sale.
That's right.
It was one of the biggest ones of its time.
Yep.
I met Festus there, Ken Curtis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he would have celebrities come and just walk around. Well, old Festus was there in his get-up and his hat and his vest and his high-top boots and all that stuff. And how you doing? I wasn't a big Gunsmoke fan then like I am now.
Right.
And I thought he was kind of silly and talk with a twang like we did. And we shook hands and everything, a little short guy, I was thinking about winning something. I wasn't big on celebrities and stuff.
Right.
And Johnny Gimbel was down there and he played in a band, and now I play fiddle. That's my hobby because I can't ride a horse anymore. But, I wish that I'd paid more attention to people like that then. But I was trying to win something.
Sure. And you did.
Well, they let me. And I like to say let because somebody has to have hell before you can win something. Think about that. You don't really beat anybody. You do the best you can do and you have a given day. But somebody has to have trouble before you're going to win something.
Maybe. Or you were just the best roper that day, Pake. You ever thought of that?
Well, Guy, I've seen him win 4 go-rounds in a row in 2 different places. Once at Fitztown over here by Stonewall, another at Tucumcari one time. And he's the most remarkable guy I've ever seen. And he told me one time when he had roped just like a perfect roping like that, he said, the worst thing about this is, I said, what? He said, having to go back to the practice pen tomorrow with nothing to work on. Now, he wasn't bragging.
Mm-hmm.
He was dreading it, but he was going to go anyway. Not many people would go to the practice pen the next day after winning all 4 go-rounds.
Right.
Pake practice is a little different than a lot of guys, too. I only practiced with him, I think, 1 or 2 times ever, and I lived down here in this country, and I didn't go to his house. I think he came to our house, but we laid a steer down to tie. We all naturally wanted to get out the stopwatch and see who was the fastest. Well, Pake, he played a game called No Stall?
No pauses.
No pause.
Yeah, no pauses, yeah. See, I learned this from Tom Ferguson, roping calves. He said, don't ever take a stopwatch to the roping pen. He said, just do fundamentals and go a little bit slower, because when you get there to the competition, your adrenaline's going to step you up 1 step faster. So leave enough room for that. So I got along better with pauses and tried to slow down and be faster than it was to try to be real fast.
How many times you heard that in your life? Slow down, be fast.
Be fast, yeah.
It's the truth.
Jim used to say you tie a lot more steers taking your time than you ever will trying to be fast.
Oh, absolutely.
I heard him say that.
I roped in the last time that they had that roping it out there at Clovis, New Mexico in that old big pen.
Okay.
And I went out there with Daddy and Jed Rowe, and I tied them all down, and but I didn't win anything. I was a couple of holes out of the average. And Schote come up to me and he said, well, you didn't win nothing, but at least you tied them all down. Well, to me, Schote saw me rope. I didn't think he's even watching. But that was as good as winning something.
Yeah.
For sure. What year did you make the finals?
74 to 82. Oh, while we're on Schote, I got to tell you this.
Let's hear that.
I told this at Shirley Webster's funeral the other day up there at Nowata, about a week ago. Schote and I was sitting on the tailgate of a pickup in the parking lot there at Cheyenne. I said, Schote, how many times did you win this rodeo? And he said, only 6. I said, why do you say only 6? He said, well, I was at this damn thing 25 times.
They said that he made the national finals several times, and if it was very far away, he might not even go.
Yeah, he wouldn't go.
He wouldn't even.
It didn't used to pay like it does now, though.
Did you
It'd
know?
go now.
Did y'all know I was at the first national final steer roping?
No,
I
did
was
not
too.
know that.
Was you there?
Yeah. I was just 3.
Okay, that was in 59, I was 6.
Yep.
You was born in 56?
Yeah.
Okay. You remember how cold it was?
Oh, well, I don't remember, but I know the story.
Okay.
His dad ran the chute.
Well, see, Daddy was he made it, and we were out there, but he was down in his back, and he didn't get the rope.
Yeah.
But me and Mama never got out of the car.
Right.
But I could see all of these ropers. They didn't have hats on. They had them button-down caps with ear flaps on them. Oh, the wind was just blowing ferociously, and cold, and just miserable on everybody. So they said. Me and Mama never got out of the car.
Well, my dad ran the chute for the team roping and the steer roping, and then he'd go get in the car during the barrel racing, and warm up. So he was probably the coldest guy there. I had to sit there on that chute.
Oh, wouldn't you hate to have that job?
Yeah.
I'd rather been untie man.
Yeah.
Daddy was the director, steer roping director that year. And when they was voting to have the national finals rodeo, they wasn't going to involve team ropers and steer ropers. And so, well, give us money, we'll have it somewhere else. No, we're not even going to do that. So they got in a battle over it, Daddy said. So he said, well, all right, then we won't take your insurance. We don't need insurance like you bronc riders do and bull riders do. Well, this lawyer was sitting and said, boys, you need that membership in there to keep your premiums down because they don't get hurt. So he said, he's got you there. Said, all right, we'll give you $5,000. I think it was $5,000 to go have it at Clayton. That's how it came about.
They didn't give a belt buckle either, and I just now, Jim won it, and I just a couple of years ago got a belt buckle out of them. I mean, I had to pay for it, but they give me a discount and the whole deal. I made it just like they were supposed to look back then.
Good.
It's in the Cody's museum right now.
Wow, good for you. Good for your family.
It's really neat. Yeah, his family has a real deep rooted with that first national finals. His dad won the average. Joe made it.
Jim won the average.
Yeah, your granddad won the average.
Yeah.
Joe made it, and his dad was 16th and ended up working the chute.
So how old was Joe then?
He'd have been 17, I think.
He
Or
was
18, maybe 18.
He was, when his younger age, he was so fun to watch. So fun to watch. Didn't you think?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've been told, too, how tough he was.
Yeah, he was. He when Sonny Davis and him and Choate and Shaw and Troy Ford and Jim Snively, when they rode in there, everybody looked up. Just like they said when Dean Oliver was in his heyday in the slack, everybody'd be talking, but when he rode in the box, it got deathly quiet. Everybody looked up.
Yeah.
Practicing over here. How big of a practice pen did y'all have?
It was 17 acres. There was a pond in it. It was a hay barn in it, and it was plowed up on one part of it, and it was grass down there, the most of it. So if you want to get ready for Pendleton, you just tracked him on down there and tied him down on the grass.
So it sounds like you just roped them out in the middle of an open pasture with a little bit of
It was but the pecan trees that were down at the back end. They took the pecan trees out in the middle of it before I started roping.
Yeah. My dad said he came down here as a kid to a jackpot or something at their house or at that arena, and there was a big tree right out in the middle of the arena.
Yeah,
might keep your horse from ducking right there.
Yeah, you gotta watch. You gotta either run him past it or rope him pretty soon. Don't go he sound like Posey did. But now the highway goes right through it. 69 highway goes
Is that
through
right?
it. Yeah.
Huh.
The old hay barn's still there, and you can kind of tell where it was.
That's just wild. So the roping arena had the hay barn, a pond, pecan trees, a little bit of it plowed up.
And grass,
mostly grass.
Yeah. See, the first, me and Don Smith, my cousin, his daddy and my mama were brother and sisters, and we were getting ready to go to Sonny Waltman's at Nowata for a first steer roping. And I roped both of my steers, but he run right down the right fence, and I tracked him all the way to the back end, didn't get to tie either one of them. Now that should have told me right then I'm roping with the wrong hand. I mean, this ain't rocket science.
Right.
You think any idiot would have figured that out. But no, not me. It felt good in that hand. Well, it's like me trying to talk Kenyon Burns out of roping left-handed. He was left-handed. Lionel come to me at Guyman. He said, hey, I need your help. I said, what can I do? He said, Phil Lyons talked to that kid. I've talked to that kid. Guys talked to that kid. He will not quit roping left-handed. So, where is he? He's out there roping a dummy left-handed. I said, we got to get him out of that. So I went out there and talked to him. And so after that was the straw that broke the camel's back. He quit roping left-handed and made the finals right-handed. Still ropes right-handed today.
Speaking of Kenyon, were you there at Cheyenne that year? He was riding his horse on the track with a halter on him, bareback.
No.
Well, his horse took off with him, Jimbo. Zero control, and they were getting ready for a big concert, George Strait. It was one of the biggest concerts they've ever had at Cheyenne. And their stage was a little bigger than normal, and they had a great big 2x4, like clothesline looking deal. It hits you about right here if you're walking under it on foot. And his horse decided to go between all that with him on top of him and the halter on the track at Cheyenne at a high rate of speed. And Kenyon started going underneath all them deals, and he came back on the other side unscathed. It was the craziest thing. It'd be like your horse running through the strip and shoot with you on him. Right. At a roping.
Before I roped up there at Cheyenne, in '58, Daddy won it on Hugh Posey's little horse called Dunny, a little low-made calf horse. And back then, they roped calves and steers both on those horses. And so anyway, they were back behind the chutes, and they had them big old long highline poles, big old things there. And they were just going to tie onto this thing and stand this little horse out on the end of it, just to kind of get him to stand out on the end of it. He was that green. And Daddy said you couldn't log him at all. He would just go crazy. So that's all he was wanting to do. Suppose he was sitting on this little horse and with a nylon rope. And Daddy said, Posey, whatever you do, don't get off of him. He said, oh, he'll be all right. I said, Posey, don't get off of him. He got off of him, and that little horse took off. And back then, they used to have these blinds around these outhouses, to keep people from, you had to walk around it and go in. Well, this little pony run off with this huge highline pole and hung the corner of that blind and tore it down and went to dragging it down the side of this racetrack with people. And the only thing that saved, keep from killing somebody, was it cut the rope. And that pony run all the way to the other end of that big old pen.
That could have been a major wreck.
That could have been awful.
I saw a guy one time. It was at our house right over here. We were having a big steer roping, and there was a fella by the name of Joe Saul, I think, from northern Texas that came up. And he roped the steer, and it came off the steer's head as he's stepping down. I don't know if he only had one horn or horn broke. I don't know. But the horn wraps, the rope, everything came off of the steer and wrapped around Joe's legs. And we had a pretty big arena. It wasn't 17 acres by any means, but it was a
big
nice big arena.
Good one.
And that rope started dragging along the fence, and it was fixing to suck Joe underneath the fence. And it was going to be a very, very bad situation when it all came tight. And that rope cut right on the fence right before it all came tight.
It doesn't take much of a cut to break a rope.
I've only broke one roping, and it was at Cheyenne, and it put my horse's right eye out when it came back at us.
Ooh, it'll do it.
But if it was an eye to go out, that was a good one to go out on a steer horse anyway.
I got to tell you a story about, if y'all don't mind, about a roping fiesta story. I had a green horse that wouldn't get along very good with him all summer, but we wound up going to roping fiesta at San Angelo, and we'd built a new house up there at Pittsburgh. And I had a guy dig my rural water line. It's going to cost $5,000. And I said, I'm going to have to owe you this. And he said, okay, we'll do it. Don't worry about it. So I went in setting second in the short go and just tied him down. Didn't place in any of the rounds. And the guy in front of me went out, but Tuffy went in third. He passed me, but I still won second. And I won $5,300 by winning second, which paid for my water line. Well, there was a lady, Katie, my first wife, was sitting on the hood of her truck up next to the fence on that east side. And this lady was parked there, and every time I'd tie one down, she would just jump up and cheer. And so finally, when I tied that last one down, Katie said, what is it? Why are you cheering for him? Said, I bought him in the Calcutta because he was the cheapest one sold. and she won $18,000. First time she'd ever played it. She just wanted to play it.
A lot of times they come give you 10% or 25% of that Calcutta.
She didn't know anything about that.
Newbies.
But I was proud enough. I wasn't that much. I hadn't won that much all summer long on that green pony.
Yep, my dad went down there one time, and some Calcutta people called and asked how he'd been roping, and my mom said, "Oh, don't buy him. He ain't been roping. He ain't been practicing, and he wasn't even roping that good when he quit practicing this year." And I'll be danged, he went down there and won it, and those folks called back mad at her.
Well, this year they let me win the Ben Johnson we was talking about. Autumn and Calamity were little, and they was hot. Oh, you couldn't get a breath of air, and everybody just standing around sweating. And so they found a motorhome to get in where it was cool. Well, they looked through the windows and saw it was breaking up, knowing it was over. And somebody walked by and said, "Hey, girls, your daddy just won the steer roping." And Calamity says,
That's quite the name, Calamity.
Yeah.
I've always liked that name.
I wanted to name her Calamity Jane, but my wife talked me out of that, so we called her Calamity Joe.
Just as good, dang near.
Well, kind of.
That Calamity, she was always kind of your wild one of your bunch, wasn't
Yeah,
she?
she was one that would come and ask me stuff when the other two wouldn't. So you go ask him. No, you ask him. No, Calamity, you ask him. He likes you better. I liked all of them.
They were great girls growing up. Great girls growing up. Everybody always thought anyway. So, they held the NFR steer open portion right down here in McAllister a couple of years.
Right.
Were you in on that? Or
No.
go to watch it or anything?
Oh, yes, I'd go watch it. And Daddy actually flagged it one time. He didn't make it one year, and there were several years he didn't make it, but that year in particular, he flagged it. It's been in a lot of places. Clayton, New Mexico. It's been in Veneta, Pawhuska. It's been in McAllister. Hobbs, New Mexico.
Douglas, Wyoming.
Douglas, Wyoming.
Mulvane, Kansas.
Yeah, Mulvane.
Pecos. Did you say Pecos?
Yeah, Pecos. Yeah, Daddy was there in '67, I think. In fact, that statue, that was a picture. That statue was made off the picture there at the finals in Pecos.
Really?
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know, it's just awful hard to get people to come out and watch it, but, it is so much fun, and I probably have had more fun practicing than I have going because I get to run more head that way. I bought one time in the fall of 1981, I bought 198 practice steers. It had 3 horses. And I roped them. They were natives. Didn't tip them, didn't wrap them, didn't rebar them, nothing. If I broke a horn, I just smooth-headed them, and made stalkers out of them. Well, that spring, I put 800 more cattle with them up at Cassaday, Kansas. And we went up there and stayed in a bar because there was no motel rooms. And a man by the name of Carl Grunder had a propane company up there, and he owned this bar. And it had 3 rooms in it. But the bar wouldn't open, Cody, until Saturday night, the weekend. And so all the locals would come into our house on a weekend. And we stayed up there a full month, from April 1st to May 1st. And then come May 1st, we run all these cattle through this long chute, 1,000 head of them, and gave them that injectable tramadol that we used to have on backpacks. And we drove them out with Larry Nelson. He was going to look after them all summer. And we drove them out in them pastures just at dark, and they had burned those pastures in the Flint Hills. And that grass was up about that big, and you talk about some tired horses at the end of the day. Them things would spread out across there, and we just kept trying to throw them in the herd. And but that was really fun. But I'd go play music shows and come back, and that was last year I made the finals on those horses, because I just backed in there and tied them down. This one black horse, that just a common cold-blooded ranch horse, thin neck, no tail, big-footed. I didn't break away on him. I didn't log him. I didn't do nothing. I had a jerk line on him and a switch in my belt, and just went to tying him down on him. And he turned out to be the best horse.
Ain't that the way it usually goes? Seems like.
I won second on him at Angelo, made the finals on him, won Pendleton on him. And you could be down there and have a steer kicking your pockets off, and you could cluck to him, he'd step up, and he'd say, whoa, and he'd stop. You know, it just using him. He's the first one I tied on and the last one I tied on, because I didn't care if he made a good horse or not. But he wound up being a good horse.
Survival of the fittest, and it worked out for him.
Yeah.
It did work out for him. I'm going to have to use that one of these days. Hey, sweetie, they didn't have any motel rooms. I'm going to have to stay in this bar for a couple days, all right? I didn't stay all night in that bar. They just didn't have any motel rooms. And that's the only place there was to stay.
He told us, he said, now, guys, there's Subway sandwiches in the ice box. Help yourself to the beer, but don't forget to put money in the cash register. Yeah, and the rent was $10 a day.
Playing instruments. You told us about your first gig. Were you already playing instruments at that time?
No. I didn't start playing round hole guitar till I was in 8th grade. And Mr. Clark Ryan was teaching me. And see, we already could sing a little bit from Mama teaching us 3-part harmony in the back seat of a car, going down rodeoing or going to school, because she was a school secretary. And so we rode with her. I'd get my clothes. I'd go out and feed the horses and saddle up a horse while they was eating. And now this is in wintertime. Summertime we got to rodeo because the cattle were out on the grass, but the wintertime was a lot of work down there. We had a lot to do with very little things to do with. No 4-wheel drive trucks, no round bales, everything real hard. And Daddy didn't have much help. So I'd saddle up a horse and run in there and eat breakfast and while the horses finish up eating, and then run out there and saddle and go to pushing cattle up to the feed troughs. Well, then when Mom and the girls would get ready, they'd honk the horn and come around the house, and I'd lope the horse back to the yard fence, tie him up, and get in the car and go to school. Well, that's just the way it was around there. But as far as playing an instrument, we had a country music band class in high school. Got a grade for it. Had floating subject, and you had a subject 4 days a week, not 5. And so there was 8 of us in the class. And who wouldn't rather be playing country music in the middle of school than having going to science or English class? And we were the heroes of the school. We played for everything the school needed a band for, like a marching band would, like football games, pep rallies, basketball games, you name it. We were the country music. We were the school's band class. And it was really fun. There was one kid in there that was kin by marriage to us, and he come to school strumming this old electric guitar, and he didn't know but a few chords and didn't sing, bashful, wouldn't talk to you. And so anyway, we needed a bass player because Mr. Ryan, our teacher, was the bass player, and that didn't make sense because it's a kid band. Well, after a couple of weeks, he just put Roger to play him this bass guitar. Showed him a few notes on it, away we went. To my knowledge, Roger to this day has never earned any other income other than playing electric bass guitar. And he has played for Alan Jackson for the last 30 years.
Wow. One of your schoolmates?
Yes. True story.
Well, that's something else.
Yeah.
That was really something else. A lot of success. Did your sisters join the country music class, or was just...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Reba and Susie.
Well, it has to be the most successful music program from a high school in history.
Yeah.
Period.
You know what was
Bar none.
Especially one that size.
Yeah.
Cody, you know what's bad about it, though? Here's the downfall of it. The teacher, Mr. Clark Ryan, we had so much talent. See, everybody in that class made their living sometime or the other playing country music. Well, when we all graduated, here come these other little kids with not as much talent. And he said, no, they don't have enough talent. We're going to close the class down.
Well, y'all blew the doors off the deal.
Yeah, I mean, who goes into a science class knowing that you're going to be a scientist someday?
Well, they're all going to be Albert Einstein coming out of the dang deal if they're like that deal.
Yeah, see, you know, so we're all in there to learn. But we had spoiled him so much, he didn't have to teach us. He just had to keep us from fussing and fighting. That's
Had to keep the band together.
Yeah, that's it. He had to tell us right in the middle one day, he said, look, how many of y'all have had a call from Nashville lately? I said, nobody. Well, you're acting like it. So quit acting that way. Now get along. So, true story. But that's the worst part of it. They closed the class after we all left.
You just set the bar too
I
high.
had too high standards.
Yeah, but it shouldn't have. They should have let them little old kids. And even if you help one, because who knows? Who knew Roger Wills was going to play for Alan Jackson for 30 years
Right.
with his talent?
That's something else.
But he wanted to. And it all started from that class.
What was your first band? Was that it? Away from your school band?
It wasn't my band, but we would go over to Ken Lance's before we were ever old enough to be in there. And we would play with bands. And because we sang 3-part harmony, which was bloodline harmony, it was really good, for our age especially. And, but my own band, I guess the best of my first, and it really wasn't my band. Ray Bingham from Tulsa, now lives at Claremore, put me in with the Country Cousins, which is later Stone Horse. And there were 3 sets of cousins, 3 families, and they're all kinfolks to each other. And that was really a lot of fun. And but I don't know, Cody. I can't remember my very first personal band.
On that Ken Lance over there, there's a lot of people that aren't real familiar with the Ken Lance Arena or Ken Lance. Can you fill in a little bit of that for everybody?
I think it went on for 30 years, and Ruth, his wife, Ruthie, he called him, had a book called Roping My Dreams, or Roping the Dreams, and she had a lot of history in there. What he would do is he'd have, back then it was IRA rodeo. He went PRCA some years. But he would have a rodeo, promote it all year long, and Ruth's daddy financed the whole thing. And they had a nice, real small arena with bleachers, nice bleachers, and he'd really hype it up. Big deal in Ada. See, the Ada rodeo prior to this was the biggest rodeo in Oklahoma at one time. But then when it shut down, then it went to the Ken Lance deal. Well, he would have entertainers come in, and on a flatbed trailer, he pulled it in there with a tractor and have him do a couple of songs for the crowd and say, okay, he's going to be at the dance, y'all come to the dance. Well, at the rodeo, everybody go to the dance. I never will forget, we went over there one time to watch somebody, I was with this Ray Price, Loretta or somebody, and Daddy was going, I had friends with me, Alice had friends, Reba had friends, and it was like 9 of us Daddy had to pay to get in. And
Entourage.
It's $5 a piece. Woo. $45. He said, whoa, I ain't doing this again. But yeah, it was a big deal in this part of the country back then.
I heard a good story about that place too, Jimbo. So I guess they used to wheel out this big wheelbarrow full of nickels during the rodeo and pick somebody to go get as many nickels as they can carry out of the arena. They can have them for free. They're yours. Well, they said this is a family-friendly podcast, but I'm going to tell this anyway. So the person they picked happened to be this old gal wearing a tube top, came rolling out there to get as much nickels as she could possibly get on her body and carry out. Well, of course, the first thing she started doing is loading down the front of her tube top. And I guess when she stood up, the nickels just brought the whole thing down, outweighed it. The elastic wasn't strong enough to hold up all those pounds of nickels in her tube top, and everything come flying out right there at the Ken Lance Arena. That's the one good story I heard about that place.
Okay, when Reba, well, let me back up a little bit. Reba was going to the National Finals rodeo just to watch it in Oklahoma City when it was at the fairgrounds. Daddy said, Reba, while you're up there, you're going to be up there anyway, why don't you ask Clem McSpadden if you can sing the national anthem? While you're there. Okay. So she did, and he let her. Well, one night, Ken Lance knew about us singing at his place, and he knew Red Stegall from having Red booked into his place. He said, Red, I know there's 3 kids that really do sing good. I wish you'd listen to them. So by knowing Ken Lance and it all coming together, that's when Red heard Reba and took her to Nashville and got her started in the music business.
Well, that's something else.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ken Lance.
All through Ken Lance, yeah.
Thank you, Ken Lance.
You bet.
That was a great story. Thank you. Thank you for that one. The Singing McEntires. Was that you and
Reba and Susie.
Okay.
Yes. The teacher, Mr. Clark Ryan, from Wardville, the little town y'all just came through. You came right by his house. He was her teacher, and one Monday morning in band class, he comes in and he says, I wrote a song yesterday about your granddad, John. We sat down and listened to it and worked on it that hour at school. Went back to Chalky that night. He came over. We worked on it that night. The next night, we went to Oklahoma City and recorded this record that you saw on eBay or something.
Clem McSpadden's Wall.
Yeah, okay. Then we recorded that in November the 19th or 20th in 1970. Well, there was about 320 some copies of it. And we took that thing home, Jimbo. And let me tell you, it sold 17 copies just like that. But then it tapered off. Yeah. But it was a big living room hit for us. And of course, we loved it because his grandpap is about him, And on the back side of it, we had an interview with him of me and Reba and Susie interviewing him. And told some good stories about Burwell, Nebraska, and the pranks the Cowboys used to play on him and stuff like that. It's just random stories, just like we're doing an interview right now. Right. But it was a big deal.
That's a good song. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and a lot of people enjoyed it, and we get a lot of requests for it when we do shows and things, even still.
Cowboy pranks. Let's get off the music for just a second.
Okay.
You've had to be a part of a few, I would have to assume.
Oh, yeah, and...
What's the best one that you can tell here?
Well, the one I can think of right off the top of my head, me and J. Paul Williams and Rod Hartness were going to the Northwest, and we were making Union and Prineville. Do you remember that run? And we was coming out of Prineville, and I was in the back seat, and Rod said, hey, Pake, didn't you have that song called The Rodeo Man? And I said, well, yeah. He said, sing a little bit of that for me. I said, well, I'm a rodeo rider. He said, that's enough. Now, of course, Rod laughs at that a lot. Of course, everybody pulls pranks on each other, but that's part of rodeoing is having fun, and with each other. And just like one time, me and my second wife, we were at Pendleton, and there after the slack, all day of slack, people would tie their horses around to the fence and just go to the letter buck room. Well, I said, hey, you want to have some fun? She said, well, we're up here to have fun, ain't we? I said, yeah, here's what we're going to do. We're going to unsaddle all these horses. Must have been 15 of them lined up down through there. We're going to put their saddles on backwards. So we did. Well, we got to one brown horse. I said, whoa, you better leave this one alone. I said, why? I said, that's Cody Lee's horse. He rides broncs. This horse going to tear something up.
Yeah, I remember that horse.
Yeah, and
he was a dangerous horse.
Yeah, I don't want to have to fix something. So we put them on backwards and everything, and here we got up in the stands and watching everybody come out of the letter buck room feeling no pain, to say the least.
Yeah.
Here comes J.P. Wickett from Salisaw, our fearless director leader nowadays. And he comes around the corner and he said, look what they did to CA's horse. And he looked around and he said, oh no, they got mine too. Now, that's a nice version. And then there's a time Ricky Canton and Ike Good got on Buster Records' horse and somebody else's horse after coming out of the letter buck room and was going to ride the horses downtown. And they didn't even know their horses were gone. And so they stopped and decided they needed some more refreshments, so they bought them a 6-pack of beer. And this town cop stops them. And he said, boys, I can't keep you from riding your horses downtown, but you can't drink and drive. So he said, that guy put our beer in his trunk, and I know he went home and drank every bit of it. So then they'd ride the horses down to that old Krabby's bar down, and it goes, you've been there.
I can neither confirm or deny that.
Rather deny it. You got to go down steps, to get down in it.
Yeah, I heard it's underground, underneath another deal at the bottom part.
That, yeah.
That's what I heard, Jimbo.
I heard that too. So anyway, they tried to ride these two horses down these concrete steps, but the horses had more sense than they did, and they refused to go. So they tied them up to these highline poles outside. Ricky Canton and Ike Good did that. And so, but I think Buster was pretty good sports about it. He didn't get mad.
Oh no, Buster's a pretty good sport about most things.
Yeah.
Heck of a roper too.
Oh yeah.
World champion.
That's right. That
town's got a lot of world champions lived in it.
Oh, you bet.
Seems like there was a guy. I used to like the sign when we'd pass through Buffalo there. There was a world champion, I think his name was Red Booger. And I just couldn't believe that someone's name was actually Red Booger. So,
well, I grew with some Buffalo at one time.
Yeah, he lived there. He lived in Pawhuska.
Yeah.
Before. He lived in Pawhuska.
He lived a lot.
I think his kids were born in Pawhuska. A good portion of them.
I think the boy was.
Yeah, for sure.
George Carter told me one time that Ike went home with, let's see, was Barton Carter his uncle?
He was George's uncle.
Yeah, George's uncle. He said, come home with Barton, going to stay all night, and he stayed 6 months.
Yeah. Barton and Ike, they didn't invent that first horse trailer that Everett Bowman did, but they invented the first modern horse trailer that I guess they took the Hell horse trailer pattern off of. They took it back east to Madison Square Garden, the first highway worthy horse trailer.
The first one just made it to Pershing, what I always heard, Pershing, Oklahoma.
Did they make?
Yeah.
Yeah, his daughter was telling me about something like that, but George went on to tell me about the other horse trailer they made, I guess.
Okay.
It was quite the horse trailer.
Yeah.
I got a picture of it there in the museum. But what'd you hear about the one in Pershing?
Well, that's as far as they made it. They left Pawhuska going somewhere, and they made it to Pershing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. that's about 5 or 6 miles.
Yeah.
Daddy went to Pendleton 20 straight years. Back, before air conditioners and 4-lane highways and stuff. And pulled on them trailers by car. Yep. And he said one time he said right in the middle of the day, I was just so tired, had to keep going. And I saw this hitchhiker. So I stopped and picked him up. And I said, feller, can you drive? He said, not very good. He said, well, just keep it on 40. So he said, if I could ever lay down in the back and not watch, I'd be all right. So I laid down and went to sleep, and I woke up and I looked up, and that guy was leaning over that steering wheel, and he had a death grip on it. but it was long enough to give him a nap, and he got back to driving then.
Most rodeo cowboys will let anybody drive just so they can take a nap. It's the dangest thing I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
I was like 14 years old. My dad got in the back of the camper during the snowstorm. We didn't even have a boot from the camper to the front of the truck. Made me drive on to Odessa one time. And I didn't have a driver's license or nothing. But he needed him a good nap, so
That's it.
just stretch out back there and take a good nap. So you were telling us about when Reba sang the national anthem, Ken Lance talked to Red to give y'all a listen.
Right.
What was that time like in your family right when she got scooped up and went to Nashville?
Well,
Was it an exciting time for everybody?
It was very exciting for everybody involved, but it wasn't an instant success.
Oh, it wasn't.
at all.
It
No.
wasn't lightning in a bottle.
No, that was 1976, and you'll hear people comment to me say, "Oh man, I remember when Reba first got started in 1987." I said, "No, honey, it was way before that." And see, her first single, "I Don't Want to Be a One Night Stand," only made it to 89 out of the top 100. It goes up in the bottom. Now, think about it. When I got there, if you didn't get in the top 20 on your first one, they didn't release a second one. But back then, they gave you time. And good thing, because there wouldn't have been no Reba McEntire. She'd been a school teacher.
Well, she's not.
Yeah.
She's not now. She is a
But it took a while.
special lady.
And see, if she was 8 years with Mercury Records and still owed them $160,000, they hadn't got in the black yet in the first 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah. See, then she went to MCA. Then Mercury went to selling old cuts off of her and recouped their money back. And see, the way those contracts were is they put up all the money, and you don't get a royalty check until they get in the black. All you get is your personal appearances and stuff.
What about when you got signed, Pake?
My first record went to 20, but my problem was the albums wasn't selling anything. My first album only sold 50,000 records. And see, that's why they let me go. I was having great radio success. My first record went to 20. My second one went to 3.
Number 3 on the
Number
charts.
3, yeah. And Reba had a song on there in the top 100, top 20, I think it was. We've got the album in there. But anyway,
Well, that was something else. You to be number 3 and your sister being in the top 20.
yeah, it was. And you know, it all comes up slow. But the thing that was so special about Oklahomans was when Garth come along. His albums would debut at 1. Now that is totally unheard of. That's as unheard of as Willie Nelson's Stardust staying on the top 100 charts for 360 some weeks.
Wow. Well, that Garth, he went to number 1 on the pop charts too. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
everywhere. That guy went everywhere. Number 1.
But see, there's been a lot of people cross over. Johnny Cash crossed over to the rock and roll and pop charts. A lot of people did, but no one has outsold Garth. And he's done so many remarkable things. Like, who would have thought he could take a rhythm guitar and sell out Las Vegas?
Right.
That's unheard of. He does so many things. And asked Reba, I said, Reba, how on earth is he still winning Entertainer of the Year after all these years? He says, he's selling out stadiums still.
Yeah, how is he
Yeah.
not winning Entertainer of the
He
Year
went
after
to
all
Times
these years?
Square that time. You remember when he went back to New
Central
York?
Park.
Over 1 million
Yeah,
people.
Central Park. I
Central
said
Park,
Times Square. I meant-
980,000
yeah,
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I Googled it the other day,
Yeah.
980.
Yeah.
And I heard an interview of him. He was telling, what was his wife's name, his first wife?
Sandy.
Sandy.
Yeah.
He said, what if nobody shows up?
Can you imagine an old kid from Oklahoma could sell out or have that many people at Central Park in New York?
I mentioned Ray Bingham, the booking agent from Claremore and Tulsa. He said that was the most surprise of my whole music career was Garth. He said he used to show up when I would have people like Mo Bandy and people like Red and John Anderson at shows, and he'd want to sit in with them. He'd come and ask me because I was a promoter. He said one time I had a show with Red, and here come Garth. And he said, ask them if I can sing a song with their band. And so, okay. So Danny, Red's brother, Danny Stegall, he said, Danny, this boy wants to sit in. I said, all right, yeah, oh, you bet. So when he gets on stage, Danny said, what do you want to do? He said, Lone Star Beer and Bob Wills music. Well, that was Red's signature song, his ending song of during his show. So Danny says, okay. So they fired away on it. And Ray said, looked over at Red, and Red looks up, turns around, and looks up at the band and said, he's doing my song. He's doing my song. So when he got off stage, Red walked up to him and said, boy, why did you sing my song like that? He said, well, I knew the band knew it.
Who all did you get to open for? Anybody? Any big names or any big events?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I opened for Alabama in Dothan, Alabama one night in this huge fancy tent in their heyday. See, we were on the same label together, RCA. And the biggest applause, see, the opening band is just kind of racket or noise for everybody to wait on what they come there for. And in Alabama, you're in Alabama. People come see Alabama, not Pake McEntire. Right. And we know that. The thing you never do is go over. If you got 20 minutes, don't you play 21 minutes. They'll come tell you. Not the act, but the people involved. And so you always want to be under. We learned that. But, oh, yeah, the biggest applause we got that night was, you folks ready for Alabama? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, people like Eddie Raven, Reba, George. Garth actually opened for us one time. Get this.
Yeah, I want to hear it.
We were playing, me and Billy Parker of KVOO Radio in Tulsa. Garth was going to go on first and did. Billy come on, and then we came on and closed the show. And every time I talked to Billy, which was just a couple of days ago, I was talking about Mama's memorial service. He said, you remember the time that Garth opened for us? I said, oh, yeah, at Binky's in Stillwater. Oh, shoot, there was just Bellamy Brothers 3 or 4 times, Eddie Raven, oh gosh, there's been a whole slew of them. There's people I didn't open for, and that was Dolly, Kenny Rogers. Never did open for Merle, but opened for Randy Travis, opened for Keith Whitley. We did a show in Austin together. We were on Nashville now together. He asked me to come home with him 2 or 3 times, and I wished I had him. I just didn't. I don't know. I just didn't.
He was one of the best of all time.
Oh, yeah. He was a great guy. We was down to Austin one time, and this promoter wanted Keith to open for me. And Keith's promoter said, no, that's insulting. We've been around longer than he has. And said, he's supposed to open for us. So they come to me and said, they want you to open. I said, I don't care. I'll open for Keith Whitley. Hell yeah. And be glad to. Then this promoter, no, we want him to open for you. I said, look, y'all work it out. I don't care. So what they did was, one of us opened for the first show and the other one opened for the second show.
Oh, yeah.
I did. Working with Sleep at the Wheel one time, and we were, on those days, we were doing anywhere from 15 to 18 shows a month. One-nighters. If it was around 500 to 900 miles between shows, it didn't hurt. Over 1,000 miles, we could feel it in a pickup and camper, pulling a 5 by 14 foot trailer. We felt it. We were doing this show somewhere back east, I don't remember where, with Sleep at the Wheel. And so they was all out back looking at their bus, and it had grass all under the front of it and dirt. I said, what in the hell happened? So our bus driver went to sleep at the steering wheel. I said, y'all going to have to rename your band.
Yeah.
Sleep at the Wheel. And this little old Mexican was sitting over there nodding out. He's still, I said, why ain't he in the bunk? I said, I don't know, we can't get him to go lay down. He's been a good driver. Well, anyway, we opened for them. And so they come up afterwards and said, hey, they're wanting to get out of here. They got barely going to make it to the next gig. Said, do y'all mind letting us open for you? I said, no, anything. We all get paid the same. It doesn't matter to me. So, yeah. And they never forgot that. Every time we'd play with them, hey, you remember the time you let us open for you so we get out of there? Yeah, you just do that. and was at a county fair one time and saw this goat that would blow up balloons. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'd like to have me one of those.
Yeah, I said, how long will he do that? He said, as long as you put him in his mouth and hold him, he'll blow him up.
Wow.
Yeah, you see all kind of things like that.
If you see another one of them, try to buy them off of him for me.
Absolutely.
I could really use
Kids
one of
would
those.
love that.
Pake, you mentioned Keith Whitley is really a nice guy. Who else? I don't want you to badmouth anybody, but who were some of the good guys that you came across in that business that we'd know?
The business is so different than. It's different on the inside than it looks on the outside. You know, when we're sitting in our recliner with some iced tea or a cold beer watching the award show or whatever, you think, man, they got it easy. You know, well, it looks easier from our chair, but they've gone through a lot to get there. And they had to work hard to do it. They tell me, you hear all these rumors when you get into Nashville. Like, everybody in town turned Garth and Randy Travis down at least twice. All the record labels. They just slammed every door in their face. They just kept on being persistent with it. You hear all kind of this road man, the booking agent named Bob Yance worked for Bobby Roberts Talent that did the booking for us. And Bob Yance was a drummer for Mel Tillis for 8 years out on the road. He said the year that Mel won Entertainer of the Year in 70-ish, 72 or something back there, he said, he told all of his managers and booking agents, he said, now this ain't gonna last long, and I know it. So I'm a songwriter. But book me anywhere you can book me, and I'll take it. They played 109 straight days. There was 17 on the bus with 12 bunks. One bus.
Sounds a little bit like rodeoing.
It's harder than any rodeoing I ever did. Yeah, way harder. You get fatigued out, your voice gets tired, and you get musicians that can't take it, and they had a really nice kid from Stonewall just begged me for a job. I said, Randy, you won't like it? You won't like it? No, it's Marty, I'm sorry. He said, oh yeah, I will. It's just been my dream to get on the road. He came to me after about, probably 4 or 5 weeks, and he said, Pake, I ain't slept a wink since we've been on this deal. He said, I gotta go home. I said, I knew it, Marty. It's okay. Go home. And your throat gets tired, your voice gets tired, but you got to put on a smile whether you feel like it or not. And to answer your question, Jimbo, all of these guys and gals have worked hard to get there. So they're just old country people.
Are they? That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, Dwight Yoakam was strange, and we opened for him, but he was bashful more than anything. Mm-hmm. But once you got to talking to him, he's really a nice guy. Yeah. But Gail Davies from Broken Bow was a little put out with the whole industry because she was going out as I was coming in. And she had seen a lot, and she was tired of it, and she was ready to get the hell out of Dodge. And you can tell. It's like these hired hands around here. You can tell when they're getting ready to quit. Mm-hmm. You know. But yeah, we had open for the Bellamy Brothers at the Ponkin Theater at Ponca City one night. And that was when I was doing soundtracks. And we had this skit lined up. I was going to talk about the country music band class and talk about Roger and playing with Alan. And I was going to... And there was a little girl in the class, and she went on to make her way into gospel music. Are there any Susie McEntire fans with us tonight? Oh, yeah, some. And there was another girl, freckle-faced, red-headed, and she was anything but shy. Went on to become a superstar. And friends, have I got a treat for you tonight. Said, recently we have had a family reunion, and they all came home. Make welcome, if you will, my two sisters, Reba and Susie McEntire. Well, the crowd just goes crazy. Well, had it rigged up that my manager was supposed to tell these sound guys to just punch play on this deal. It was a big drum roll. All this, that. Well, we told these guys that it was a hoax, it was a prank, that they're not really here. But they fell for it. Anyway, so when I did that, they just gawking and looking for Reba and Susie. And with us telling them. And so my manager said, punch play. And there I am standing there, dead silent, and all the crowd. And she had to literally climb over these guys to hit that play button to get this drum thing going. But stuff like that. And we've had girls go to screaming, go to pulling their hair over this stupid skit. Mm-hmm. And Daddy said, you shouldn't do people that way. I said, what do you mean? He said, lie to them like that. I said, Daddy, it's just an act. It's show business. He said, I don't care. That's lying to them. You shouldn't do that.
All I think about is being country music stars, you got a line of girls waiting on you, and you got the best of everything. You don't think about all the work that they had to do to get there.
At first, I tell you, one time me and Reba and Susie was gonna go play the KVOO picnic one morning, and I woke up sick. Oh man, I was sick. If I wasn't throwing up, I was on the pot, both. And we got in the car and headed up that way. Pull over, just all the way up through there. Finally got to Tulsa and I said, guys, something's wrong with me bad. Take me to the hospital. So they took me to St. John's. And they went and played the deal by themselves, and that evening they took my appendix out. So the next morning the doctor come in there and I said, hey, what's the matter with me, my appendix? He said, well, you ain't sick, are you? I said, no. He said, that must have been it. So, and we've known Guy Allen, a lot of people that they just let their appendix rupture, nearly killed them, But anyway, I was recovering from this and kind of give you a little bit of the earlier tough days at first. And Reba had just enough success to just put a band together. And Narvel and Preacher Williams and another player was staying at the Weenan Shack in Chalky. And they was making about $50 or $75 a month. It was that bad. And when Johnny Cash, I heard him talk about this, where everybody goes through it. The routing is awful when you're at an early stage because you'll take anything.
Right.
Well, Reba tells me, she says, and I've been playing bass over at Sulphur for a year and a half and singing 30 songs in a weekend, a night. And she said, I need a bass player. I said, okay. We left home in a van in this 5 by 14 foot trailer. And we went to Pagosa Springs, Colorado, played one night. Went to Pendleton and played 4 nights in that Dance Neal Armory building. Come back to Sedan, Kansas, played a show there. Went to Henrietta, Texas, and played a show there. From there, we went to Hemingway, South Carolina, in a van in a trailer. And me still sore from this emergency appendectomy.
Dang.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, it's a long ways from Hemingway, South Carolina to Pendleton, Oregon.
Well, dang right it is. A long ways. How far is that? 40 hours?
Oh, I don't know, but it was tough. I never will forget the night, but we had 11 o'clock show at Hemingway that next morning, and I drove till 2 o'clock in the morning. I said, I can't go any farther. So I pulled over, and these 2 boys, guitar player and keyboard player, maybe, I don't know what. So Reba told him to just go in, and I was at this truck stop, go in and get you something to drink, coffee, whatever, and bring it right back. Well, I went back there and laid down. There had this divan that laid down flat, and I laid down beside her, and man, I was just about to pass out. And boy, she got madder than a Jap. I said, what's the matter? She said, they're in there sitting on the stools drinking coffee, and we're barely going to make this show. I'm going to fire them just as soon as they come out of there. I said, no, do it after the show.
Yeah.
Don't do it now. So, oh, she was fuming. we barely made it, man. Just as soon as that thing was over, you boys come here, and she let them go. And then she caught a plane back home, and I had to ride back home with them. And that's when I hired Roger Wills, the guy that now works for Alan Jackson. You see, she worked for Reba for 8 years. And her narvel was always bad about firing musicians and letting them go. We're looking for better ones instead of keeping what you got. So I'd see Roger, and I said, Roger, you still hanging in there? He said, yeah, they can't fire me. I said, why is that? He said, because they didn't hire me, you did. I said, yeah, but I don't write your checks. So, but anyway, they fired him, and he missed that bad accident in the airplane. Yeah.
Well, that was a horrible accident.
Yeah,
too.
that's the only good thing you can say about it. And his wife, too, I'll think of her name here in a minute. They fired her before that deal too. But fate. That's just the way life turns out.
Yeah. Imagine there's a lot of good times on the road too.
Oh yeah. See, the boy that was from Ada named Dave Gant, keyboard player and fiddle player. He's been with Garth for like 20, 30 years. And he was with me prior to that. And he's a great talent. And but yeah, a lot of fun deals. You go through Yosemite Park and it's I could just go. I could write a full book on my 2 years on the road with RCA Records.
You already got one book.
Yeah, I do. But it's a.
You should write another one.
Well, we're trying to redo this one and sell it worldwide.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Janie Carter's helping me with it. She's Tom Carter's wife who helped Reba with her first book. And we're trying to... See, my first manuscript was 169,000 words. Really. And I showed this manuscript to Mama and Jimbo. I said, Mama, have I got any stories mixed up or wrong? She said, no, your stories are good, but you got to take them cuss words out of there. I said, Mama, it ruins the story. She said, I don't care, you get them out of there. I said, well, Mama, you cuss. She said, yeah, but you never saw me put it in print. So I left them in there. And the disclaimer up front, I tell people don't leave this book in church and don't show it to your kids and all that. But I'm a cowboy, and that's the way I talk. And so if you don't like the way I talk, don't read it. It's that simple. Well, Tom, her husband, who helped Reba write her first book, liked the stories, and he liked everything about it. And so, but he said it's too long. Well, Create Space first cut it down from 169,000 to 82,000 words. And then they said it's too long. So we got it down to about 62,000 right now. And we're in the process of putting the pictures to it and trying to make it. And I don't know if people read books anymore, Jimbo, or not, but they're pretty excited about it.
Yeah, books are making a big comeback, Pake.
Are they?
I think so.
Oh.
There you go.
And if you put enough pictures in it, I'm going to read it too.
Okay. Yeah, we had 200 pictures in that first one, and 82,000 words, 70-some chapters, and I got to tell you about James Maxwell. Right up here at Kiowa. A super guy, family-owned APCO gas station. As honest as it was anybody, Jim. And so he'd been in the gas station business a long time. Yeah, I can tell this.
Okay. And
so I said, James, what's the funniest thing that ever happened to you in your service station days? He said, well, Pake, he talked real slow like that. He said, when I worked for Mr. Heath down on the south end of town, he said, no, he called me Pate. He said, Pate, you know how you take that plug out of the rear end of a vehicle and you stick your finger in that hole there, And then if you get some of that oil on your finger, you're okay. But if you don't, you add some. Yeah, I know that, James. He said, well, there was a lady walked in one morning, pulled her pickup right in front of the door, and walked up to Mr. Heath and said, Mr. Heath, would you check the grease in my rear end? Last night my husband stuck his finger in it and said it was bone dry. So I said, well, what did Mr. Heath do? He said, he just looked at her.
That all
Are
of
we
it?
fired?
No. Heck no. It's hard to get fired from this deal, Pake.
Okay.
About like shoot help. Impossible to get fired from this deal.
That's right.
We noticed earlier today that your name, God-given name, wasn't Pake.
Right.
P-A-K-E.
Right. So how'd that come about?
How the heck did that come about?
Good question. And this is in the book. Whenever Mom and Daddy were expecting Alice, then instead of calling the expecting baby it or Junior or the baby, they made up Mexican names. Hers was Pedro Joe. All right. When she was born, they named her after Daddy's mama, my grandmother, Alice Hayhurst, Alice Kate Hayhurst McEntire. Well, when they were expecting me, my Mexican name was Pecos Pete. Well, so then when I was born, they named me after a steer roper by the name of Dale Haverty, Dale, and a bull rider, Stanley Gomez, so they named me Dale Stanley. But the Pecos Pete thing stuck, and short for Pecos is Pake. And that's where Pake come across. Well, confusing all my life. All my friends call me Pake. My birth certificate's Dale Stanley. My driver's license, Pake. My checking account's Dale Stanley's, all back and forth. So after all this confusion, I want to go down to the courthouse down there in Atoka, and I said, Judge, I want to change my name. He said, what to? I said, Pake. He said, thought it is Pake. I said, that's the confusion. My name is really Dale Stanley McEntire. He said, really? I said, yeah. He said, I've known you all your life. And then I said, oh, yeah, we got to clear this up. And I told him the confusion. From now on, it's Pake. What you want for a middle name? No middle name. Pake McEntire is my real legal name.
Perfect. We got to put that on Wikipedia now. On Pake's Wikipedia.
Right.
It is now officially Pake. Formerly
Yep.
Stanley.
And that is worth just what it cost you.
You know, Pake's a pretty frugal guy, Jimbo. Pretty frugal when it came to rodeoing, for sure. Well, actually, one time he let me jump in with him, and he didn't hit me up for any gas money or anything, because I think I was way broker than him at the time. He let me and my son ride with him to Cheyenne one time from
Hardin,
Kansas. Yes, sir.
I think so.
Yes, sir. But I did remember one kind of funny story from when I was a kid. I don't know. I was maybe around 12 years old. We were at Cheyenne. And somehow I got in the pickup with Pake to go eat lunch at a buffet restaurant at the mall there.
Yeah.
Country Buffet.
Yeah, good one.
And I was just with him and a couple other guys, 12 years old. My dad wasn't there. I don't know how I ended up with y'all. I think maybe through the Kylers or something. I'm not sure.
Probably.
When we sat down after we all ordered, Pake went ahead and paid for mine, but he went and added it up and told me what I owed him at the end of it. $12.47 plus my drink.
And I think you told me, well, I'd rather owe you forever than beat you out of it.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Oh my God. See, I grew up with kids like that and roped with their daddies and roped with James Allen, and me and James and Reba were out on the road before Guy and Gip ever started. And I remember we were at that old fort there south of Laramie, and James called home and he said, oh, Gip got hurt. Oh, what happened? Well, he had his legs on the end of a tailgate and they backed into a haystack and he hurt his legs. And, things like that. And, and we left, we roped at Greeley one night. We were roping steers, calf roping, and team roping with each other. And we roped at Greeley one night, and him and Reba was going to drive to Lander that night. Remember Lander?
Mm-hmm.
And so we had slack the next morning. Well, I said, okay, y'all wake me up. In an open air, back into the pickup with saddles, suitcases, a guitar, blankets, all that stuff around me. I got a sleeping bag, and I woke up, and we were pulling into Lander, and the sun was coming up. That was the best night's sleep I'd ever had. James said he got tired, and said, man, he felt the truck just shaking like that. And he looked up, and Reba was driving, was going down one of them big old mountainous hills going 80 miles an hour, pulling 4 horses. Said, and James was not like Daddy. Daddy was saying, slow this thing down, what are you, crazy or something? James said, hey, Reba, you think you might be going just a little fast? oh yeah, I guess so. And we was going along there. He had no air conditioner in this pickup. Up there around Slap Out. You know where Slap Out is? Up there by this side of Buffalo. And by Hardesty up there, little old town.
Yes, sir.
It was going down one of these big old hills. Here come this gust of wind through the cabin, just blew my hat right off my head, right out the window. We got down to the very bottom, and James had an old sorrel horse you couldn't hold with both hands with bits, and no mouth on him at all. His hair, old Snip was on the back end. His hair, get on old Snip with a halter and rope up there and get your hat. Well, I got off and got my hat, and I got back on him, was trotting him back down there to the pickup. And he got to loping, and pretty soon he got to running. He run away with me with his halter, and he just passed the pickup. And James was just nearly falling down laughing when we passed him. But we had so much fun. And but anyway, Reba she didn't have nothing to do. That was in '74, about 2 years before she got her contract, and she just wanted to go, and that was very memorable. A lot of fun.
Was she doing any entering right then, or was she just
no? She just going
swamp
on.
driving?
And we've got a picture with me winning Ogallala with that suitcase, standing there beside Margaret Deacon. And I asked her Reba's got like 27,000 pictures in a computer and on zip drives. You can't be around her 5 minutes to, let's take a picture. Let's take a picture. And besides, we got to do that before y'all leave. And I asked her the other day, you still got that? Well, let me look. Well, she hadn't got back with me about it. We got other business to do and stuff, and we're trying to swap out some land that we joined. Some of her land's inside my place, some of my land's inside her. We're trying to swap it out and stuff. And people are always calling, wanting to sell some land inside of it that's been in there and their family for years, 20 acres, for example. And they call me because I've been working on it for 20-some years, and it's inside of hers now, and, stuff like that. But so I forget to find out if she got that picture. But I'd like to have that picture.
Yeah, we'll have to find out. Ask her if she has any Ben Johnson pictures while you're talking to her for us.
I sure will. Yeah, because, they put on that celebrity team roping up there for years. I bet she does.
I'd like any copies of the old programs or any old pictures she might have.
Remind me to do that. I got to tell you a story about that celebrity roping up there.
I want to hear it. I was going to ask you about it.
They invited me to come up there. And so, anyway, who brought my fiddle in?
We did.
Oh, okay. Anyway, they want to have a practice deal before that night to run these steers through. And so, here come these guys walking up with these nylon ropes. And I jumped up. Hi, boys. How y'all doing? I'm Pake McEntire. They introduced themselves. And I said, what do y'all do for a living? I said, well, we're in the movie business. Really? Man, I'm a movie buff. I've seen a lot of movies. What movies have y'all been in? Well, we was in such and such. I said, no, I hadn't seen that one. And their faces dropped a little bit. Well, what about so-and-so? Oh, no, I hadn't seen that one either. And their face dropped a little bit. Pretty soon they ain't smiling anymore. And I'm serious. I had not seen a movie these people have been in. And come to find out, it's Wilford Brimley. And I can't think of his name right now. And next time I saw Wilfred, I said, Wilfred, I apologize. I'm so sorry. But I went and looked up all these movies like Cocoon and all those and said, you're great in those. And he said, oh, don't think nothing about it. It ain't no big deal. And then he gave me a cassette of him singing.
Yeah.
He's quite the singer.
Who was the best roper out of the celebrities that would come to the pro celebrity?
None of them.
None of them.
They were good actors.
Yeah. So you were probably the best pro celebrity roper out there.
Well, no.
Number 3 on the charts, national finalist.
Well,
Pro and a celebrity. Here's a pro celebrity combination. You should have been roping with yourself.
well, no. I'm a has-been that never was.
Well, we sure think you're something, Pake.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
What are you up to nowadays?
Well, for a hobby, I play fiddle, and I'm starting to sing again because I only have one vocal cord.
Yes, sir.
And when I got out of those strokes, I could just barely whisper like that, just barely talk. And it's coming back. I can sing a little bit, and I feel like I've got a list of 3 or 4 songs that I do, just with a click track so I can work on it and start over. And I don't have a lot of stamina with it, especially when I've been talking a lot like I did this morning. But, and I'm still running stocker steer yearlings. This is my 54th year into this business. When I was 13 years old, a friend of mine gave me that brand up there, and he gave me 3 cows, 3 calves, and 11 heifers. And we weren't in the cow business, so we run steers. So I sold them and bought steers back. Then by the time I got out of high school, I had 100 calves saved up, paid for. And so that's part of my 54 years into this business. And now we run this summer. We're going to run about 2,200 steers, and we run them on 7,000 acres of land, with about nearly 5,000 acres of it owned. The rest of it's rented, and so it's right now is the toughest probably because everything costs so damn much.
Oh, yeah.
And the packers are making most of the money, and everybody else is pretty much starving.
Your daughters, they had a little bit of musical talent, I remember, because y'all used to sing the national anthem in a lot of rodeos, and I even seen a picture back there, right here. Well, the singing McEntires,
that's them.
The new singing McEntires. What about your boys?
Okay.
Your young boys, they got any of this musical talent that your whole family seems to have?
Yes, but I want to tell you a story about Chisholm.
Yes.
And Cheyenne. Chisholm loved Alan Jackson. Well, Alan came to the night show one night. Well, I go ask Roger, the bass player. Roger, you got to get me a ticket in, just 2, if you can just get me in with Chisholm. She was real little. So, let me see. So he goes and works on it. Comes back about 30 minutes later. There ain't nothing. There ain't a backstage pass available. There's no way to get y'all through the gate. I said, man, he just apologized. That's okay. Don't worry about it. Well, little Chisholm's face just dropped. Well, I waited till we come back to the campers. She said, we're not going to get to go. I said, just be patient. I'm not through figuring this deal out. So I waited till that whole big 11,000 seat grandstand got full. And I said, come on. The rest of the other 2 girls had Stan the camper and Katie. So we went around there, and right to where they take the tickets, they were up that big old long ramp that goes up there. There was a concession table up there selling Allen t-shirts. And I said, we don't have a ticket, but my little girl's a big Allen fan. Can we at least go up there and just buy a t-shirt for her? Oh yeah. So we go up there, and I said, now Chisholm, I had my back to those people down there. I said, take your time here. So she did, and she bought her shirt, and I paid for it. I said, now look around me and see if they're looking at us. She said, yeah, they're looking right at us. So I said, well, keep shopping. So pretty soon she did act like she was looking and pointing. I said, now look around me. She said, they got their backs turned. Boy, away we went. We went all the way up to the top, got on the back ledge, and watched the whole show, and they never came after us.
Well, you got to be creative. That's
right.
probably from all them years of sneaking into rodeos when you were a kid.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think, oh, like Tommy I took up there this year, she wouldn't sit in a seat that wasn't assigned to us. I said, what difference does it make? She said, somebody's bought this seat and they're going to come move us out. I said, all right, then we'll go sit in that one. Oh, no, that would just embarrass me to no end. Well, you lose all that as a kid, as a rodeo kid. You don't get embarrassed over stuff like that.
Oh no, well, a lot of times my parents, they didn't have enough money to buy tickets for us to get in and them pay their entry fees. It didn't seem like,
No.
so we had to sneak in,
Yeah.
whether it was in the trailer, in the camper, or they drop us off a little ways down the road and you can crawl over the fence and go to the rodeo like that.
And we used to look under the bleachers after the rodeo the next day for loose change.
I was just down there eating dirt.
Did you hear the story about Ike Rude logging his horse with a dead horse that they killed on the wild horse race?
No, sir.
Yeah, he was drunk, of course. He was dragging this dead horse up and down the racetrack the next morning. They didn't take too kindly to that.
Well, stuff happens. You got to work your horse some way or another.
Well, the horse
it wasn't
was
hurting
dead.
that horse. He was already dead.
He's already past hurting. But,
No big problem with that.
Yeah. Today, but he got 10 years in the pen for that today.
Yeah. Yeah, it's called beating a dead horse.
Yeah.
Against the law.
Yeah.
Against the law nowadays.
Yeah.
It's against the law
All right,
nowadays.
Jimbo, get in this conversation.
Yeah.
Too much.
Jimbo calms everything down. He's got a good head on his shoulders.
He does.
Unlike me, I'm just a moron sometimes over here, Jimbo.
Nah, you're not bad.
Well, your boys, their musical talent.
Yeah. They've got that personality, especially Jackson. Pecos is really serious for a kid 8 years old, but Jackson will talk to anybody, and their mother and I divorced, and so they don't live with me full time. But I had them on stage and doing things, and we'll talk to anybody. In fact, there's a Mary's Barn over at south of Stonewall has a stage show, and I take them over there, and so we do a sound check, and they're up around stage and everything. They're real comfortable with it. Well, the show was getting ready to start, and I said, Pecos, where's Jackson? He said, he pointed toward the stage. I said, he's on stage? Yeah. And he was on stage before the show, sitting on a bar stool talking to the crowd. I thought, that's kind of strange. Little kid doing that, you know. And he's probably 4. I know it was over 2 years ago because they all shut down during the COVID thing. That's about 2 years ago. He's 6 now. He's 4. So I thought that was pretty different. And you gotta get past that. Just like right over here at Cairo when we were kids, they used to have a coon hunter's ball, and my Uncle Peck, who owned 8,000 acres of this country, Grandpap's brother, and he had a niece that he offered to give $5 to just to get up and sing one song. She wouldn't do it. And they come back telling that. And they said, man, we'd have sang all night for $5. But we didn't go over there, you know. It's just, we're all born to do different things. And it's a good thing, like Mama used to say, it's a good thing everybody don't like the same Sal, means Sally, girl, or there wouldn't be enough Sals to go around. So we're all built different. And even though when we're kids, we think we're all like peas in a pod, but when we grow up, we're all different. There's Republicans, there's Democrats. There's some people like this, some people like that. Good thing we don't all like to rope steers.
Singing or roping steers if you had a choice. If you had to choose.
Roping steers. I have dreams about roping steers. Do you?
Sometimes, especially around this time of year when Cheyenne just got over and Pendleton's coming up and things like that.
Mine is I'm running this hard running steer. And I run up there and rope him. He's trying to get away. And just when I rope him to get my trip, I start out of there and then wake up.
That ain't no funner.
No, miss the rest of it.
Well, that's a good time, though, right there.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I know there's no money. I tell these young boys, I said, guys, I know it'll beat your checkbook up. I know there's a lot of pressure. And just like I tell Tim Prather and Bud Upton and all these guys that I talk to, Walter Arnold, of course, Alan Keller, I talk to all these people. I say, we didn't realize how much fun we were having at the time. We were too serious. And Tim says, yeah, but I was broke. I needed to win something to get to the next. And I said, oh, welcome to the party, pal. We were all like that. That's what's so fun about it. Just like Jim Davis showing up drunk, roping drunk all the time. We were up there at Cheyenne talking. He was sitting there talking. This kid was sitting and listening. And I said, remember how drunk you used to be? You'd be drunk by 10 o'clock and the roping didn't start till 1. And you was soused. And this kid was asking him, you mean you rope drunk at a roping? He said, well, hell yeah, I practiced that way.
He was really something else. So
he'd take a case of beer to the roping pen early in the morning to drink on it all day.
I remember when he quit drinking, he had already won the world a couple times, and then he got to drinking a little bit and roping.
Yeah.
And then when he quit drinking for a while and started roping again, they called him the new Jim Davis, and he was really kicking everybody's butt there for a while.
Yeah.
Right after that.
Jim's first time I ever saw Jim, he's about 4 years old. He could really cuss. And I mean, like a sailor. And I thought, boy, this boy here knows some words I ain't never heard before.
That's at Osage County. We're cussers up here.
But then I think he might have been 5 because the next year he went to school and next year come to Cheyenne, he didn't cuss at all. Going to school that first year got him out of cussing.
It tuned him up a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's something in the water up there because Jim was a cusser as a kid, and then I remember Dee and Melanie Kyler, they always got a cuss when they were kids.
Oh, yeah.
So I always associated Osage County with people that cuss. That's the reason that's one reason I moved up there, because I love do my fair share of cussing.
Hey, we went through there the other day on the way to Cheyenne.
Did you?
Yeah, we did. When Tommy wanted to go see the, Pioneer Woman deal and everything.
Did you take her by the Buck and Flamingo?
We were on our way. We didn't get to, and she
had to get to Cheyenne.
Yeah, I had to get to Cheyenne, and we had 2 days to travel. We traveled Monday and Tuesday. And I said, we need to go by. Okay, we'll do it. Then she got to hanging around shopping. And I found me a bench and somebody to talk to. So we left. And they're doing the movie right there on the street.
Oh, yeah.
And she had to go down there and watch. Well, honey, there's been millions of movies made, and it's all like this.
This movie up there is the largest budget movie in American history. They're filming right now in Pawhuska. There's never been more money spent on a movie in American history than this one in Pawhuska.
They're not done yet either.
And they're still going.
Why? Well, why does it cost so much? Why?
They went back. They're not doing any CGI, special effects or anything. They're actually building all the sets and everything up there. It's really something else. They made all the dirt streets back dirt, redid all the... Uh-oh. In trouble? Oh, my Lord.
No, it's okay. It's okay. You can't hurt it.
Well, we were going to see if you could get that baby out here and do one for us right at the very end.
That is a 1910 German Saxon fiddle.
What is that worth, about $100,000?
Oh, no, I doubt. It cost, it was given to me as a present in 2000 from a good friend from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And it was put together in Spokane, Washington, by London violin maker. And it is a right-handed fiddle, completely dismantled. Every piece on it was laying out on a big table. And they put it back together as a left-handed. fiddle.
Sorry, we touched it, Pake.
No,
never
you
happen
can't hurt
again.
it. You can't hurt it. You can't hurt it. Oh yeah, you can hurt it. You can bend it, break it in 1,000 pieces, but no, you can't hurt it like that.
Well, Jimbo, we've been sitting here talking for a while. You got anything for Pake?
Oh, I don't know. Just thank him for inviting us down and go over some of his life story. And I was especially glad to get to talk about his grandpa, because everybody still remembers Clark, but John was back there far enough back that he's kind of lost in history maybe a little bit. And it was good to hear some of those stories. He was a great cowboy and really a pioneer. They didn't have it as easy as these guys today. And can you imagine riding your horse to the 101 ranch to go to a rodeo? I mean, that's wanting it pretty bad.
Riding a train to New York
riding
City
a train,
with your horse.
So that's pretty neat.
Spend 38 days out there and not have any money, hoping you win something.
Yeah. Don't you know they were trying pretty hard?
Trying to get you a job with a stock contractor.
Yeah.
Do anything.
Yeah, pick up broncs, whatever.
Feed the horses, feed this.
Yeah.
Just want to get away from Cole County.
Yeah.
What an amazing family, though, Pake's into.
Absolutely.
One thing I forgot to tell you, when Shaw and Grandpap went to Pendleton the first year about the rope thing, that Cabbage Hill, right now it winds to get away from the grade.
Yeah.
Well, back then it was straight up that hill. And when they left, their hoopy wouldn't pull it. So they had to unload the horses and one ride and lead a horse while the other one drove the rig up it to get back out there.
We've had a few rigs I thought we might have to do that to a couple times, but never had to.
I did it in a snowstorm one time in Flagstaff going to Phoenix to the rodeo. They said, "You took the high road? Man, you take the southern route." I said, "I will going back."
Well, it has a big old hill coming into Pendleton, though, still.
Oh, yeah, Cabbage Hill.
That's a great hill to come down. That's a great hill to come down.
We fly anymore. We fly out of Love Field on Sunday, like morning, and we fly into Walla Walla, get a rent-a-car. We're into our house that we rent there in Pendleton by 8 or 9 o'clock. Then the next week, we fly out of Walla Walla like 5:30 a.m. and I'm back here by that night about 9 o'clock.
Think how much fun you would have had on a good old-fashioned road trip, Pake.
Yeah, but I can't take that anymore. I can't take them miles like I used to.
You still got your old camper around here somewhere?
No, it's gone. But boy, we used those campers. We left one time in a pickup and camper, and 7 of us in that rig. We left Orange, Texas by Beaumont at 4 o'clock in the morning on Sunday. And we were supposed to be in Chatham, New Brunswick the following Tuesday night for a show. Chatham, New Brunswick is 500 miles north of Bangor, Maine.
Whoa.
We were give out halfway there. We got to Bangor, Maine on a Monday. Let's see, Monday evening, just at dark, I think it was, just to go into this motel and clean up and just get right back on the road. And we told this guy that what we were doing, and he said, "Boys, you about got it whipped out. You only like 500 miles of 2-lane highway."
And that's really something else up there. I've only been up in that. I used to work for a company out in that direction, Jimbo, and it is a lot. It's still just 2-lane highway all the way up there.
Wow.
Then I got up there and got food poisoning. We played we had a lot of shows up there and all the way back down. But the deadheaded up there was the hard part. But we went out and ate at this fish place, nice place. And I went in and took a shower before the show in this motel. Boy, it hit me. Only time I ever had food poisoning. And the place was packed. And that fiddle felt like an anvil. And it's all I could do to stand up. And I finally had to set my fiddle down. And I'd do three songs, and the toilet was upstairs.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I made 3 trips up there And finally, the road manager come up, and I was laying on this bed back up there, and he called me Biggs. He said, "Big, you sick, ain't you?" I said, "I don't care if this whole place burns down around me. I can't go back down there." And I did 9 songs, all I could do, and they docked me $1,300 in a packed house. The band went ahead and played, but I just couldn't finish it. Took me to the hospital and went to putting IVs in me, and in about 2 days I was better. Even though I did a show that next night, but I was way better. I could do it. But if you had food poisoning.
Oh yeah, I've had it probably 15 times in my life.
You've had food poisoning 15 times?
Well, I've worked on the road a lot, Pake, and you're just playing Russian roulette when you're not cooking it yourself all day. Anytime you eat, you're just playing Russian roulette, I feel, if you're not eating at your house.
Well, that's true. Have you had food poisoning, Jimbo?
Never had.
Oh, it's sick.
But a couple of the times I ate some. Listen how stupid I am. I ordered some clams in Phoenix, Arizona one time.
Yeah. You get what you deserve what you get.
I ordered a big old plate of clams in Phoenix, Arizona, and that might have been the sickest I had ever been that night and next day. It was really, really, really bad old deal. And I took a bite of one. I was like, oh, I've never really eaten too many clams. I wonder if that's what they're supposed to taste like. I don't know, it was about $30-$40 worth of food, so I ate a big portion of it, even though I was pretty sure that ain't what it was supposed to taste like, but I wasn't so sure.
Why would you order clams out in the desert?
Well, I've been asking myself
Your
that
microphone's sick.
for 20 years, Jimbo. For 20 years, Jimbo. Since I did it. But yeah, if you work on the road and you eat out every day all the time, you're just playing Russian roulette anytime you eat.
I agree. I got one quick
Come on.
story.
You can keep telling any stories you want.
Everett Shaw told me one time he was traveling with Bob Crosby, and Bob was bad about ordering a raw steak sandwich just for the fun of it.
I figured he would be. Just to look at him. I mean, that's kind of what I expected him to order.
Just crazy
would be
stuff.
A medium rare or rare.
And so he ordered it, and Shaw went back to the restroom back there in the kitchen, and he heard this waitress turn in the order to this cook, and this cook said, "What you got out there, damn dog?"
Wild horse. They say that, I was reading a deal just the other day, they say that he used to cut his cinch strings in front of all the other ropers just to mess with their head.
Daddy said back when they used to let everybody sit in the arena at Cheyenne, all the contestants just come in the arena.
Like Pendleton is now still.
Well, it used to be. They don't let them do that anymore.
Oh, they don't?
No. He would sit there on his horse.
What's the world coming to? You can't sit out in the arena at Pendleton?
No,
I'm
not
sorry.
At Pendleton, no. And so, now in the slack you can, but not during the purse. But anyway, he would sit there with his leg across the saddle horn and girded up, and then while them bucking horses come wheeling by, and he just like that and catch them just to get jerked down in front of the crowd.
They say he was wild.
Yeah, just for the fun of getting jerked down. He said his lifelong ambition was to get killed in front of the crowd. That's what Daddy said.
He tried it a few times.
Did you see those pictures of his horses when he was really giving them a bad go?
No.
That some of those famous pictures of him. I mean,
you're getting jerked down. You mean?
Yeah. I mean, there's only 1 foot of the horse on the ground, or none on the ground.
And he's sitting up there holding the rope like nothing is going on.
He's just sitting there like he's like he's sitting at the kitchen table.
Right. He's had his right leg broke like 5 or 6 times from getting horses jerked down on him.
Daddy said that he got in the car one time on a hot day, and he pulled his old boot off, and said it stunk like a dead yearling. And he said, Daddy said he died 1,000 deaths over that old broke leg.
Yeah.
And he went to this, where's Mayo Clinic at?
Up in Minnesota.
Daddy said he went off up there and he was going to get it fixed. And he wouldn't stay. He paid this porter $5 or this guy $5 to get his clothes, and he went down there to pay his bill at the front desk, and he said, I want to pay Bob Crosby's bill. He said, He said, well, we don't have it added up. They're fixing to take his leg off upstairs. And so he left.
Yep.
He said, well, send it to Roswell, New Mexico. Now, that's Daddy's story.
Right. I'd heard they were going to wanted to take his leg off, and he treated it himself. And
It sure looked bad.
yeah, it didn't look good, but at least he had it.
That's the exact kind of bit he would ride too, right there.
Yeah, kind of like this, only
lot
longer
like it.
shank but that's another story. Bob
Yeah.
Crosby.
I like old Bob. I like reading about him. There's a lot of things. I like that Jeep he used to drive that he got killed in.
He said, Daddy told me that he took a horse up there of Fred Lowry's to Pendleton and said this horse's knee was big as a basketball. And said Fred wouldn't ride him, and he come home, but it was Fred's horse. And Bob won the steer roping on him at Pendleton.
That's something else.
Yeah. And Fred wouldn't even ride him up there.
He was a real cowboy. Pake,
What?
before we get done with you, we did bring the fiddle up, and we were hoping if you would do one for us.
What do you want to
I
hear?
hate to put you on the spot. Well,
Well,
we'd love to hear, obviously, the Ballad of John McEntire.
that's not really a fiddle tune.
Well, let's hear your best fiddle tune then,
Okay.
or whatever you want to do.
Okay.
A cappella, fiddle, tell us a poem. You know, one morning, Pate called me up about 5 o'clock in the morning. My wife was real happy about it. And he told me a poem about a horse trade. 5 o'clock in the morning. He said he likes to call all his old cowboy friends at 5 o'clock in the morning sometimes.
I feel better that time of day. I get tired all about this time of day. But when I first wake up, that's when I go practice. Yeah.
Very good. That brings back a lot of memories right there.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was a lot of grand entries right there growing up.
Oh, it was. It was.
Well, Pake, thank you for talking to us today, and we sure appreciate it.
I enjoyed it, boys, and I appreciate y'all coming down.
Yes, sir. We're just trying to help keep the Western way of life alive and well, and not let everybody forget about all these great legendary guys.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people that don't know who Olin Young was or Tuffy Thompson. Daddy used to come back in the late 60s. Who won that steer roping? Tuffy Thompson. Well, I never met Tuffy Thompson. The next week, who won this one? Tuffy Thompson. Who won this one? Tuffy Thompson.
Yep. He was good.
Great steer roper. Great guy.
Yep. you ever know his brother Bobby?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. I pulled over on the side of the road out there in West Texas one time, and I was in that camper, and somebody knocked on my back of my camper door, and it's Bobby.
Now, who did he work with? Was it 4.6s or?
I think 4.6s or triangles one. I'm not
Yeah.
sure which, Jim. But anyway, he wanted me to come and go home with him and sleep in a real bed. I said, Bobby, I can't. I haven't got time, but I sure would like to someday. But I never did.
Yeah.
Great guy.
Yep.
One time, I did a show at Tulia when we was on the road doing all those shows there at that Swisser County Fair Barn. And after it was over, Tuffy was there, of course, and he had a nip maybe. And I went over there and sat down by him, and them guys began to sacking all that stuff up. Man, you had to pack it in that 5 by 14 foot trailer just perfect, or you couldn't get the door shut. It was that tight. And he said, what are you doing sitting here? I said, talking with you. He said, you get your butt up and you get over there and help them boys load that equipment. I said, Tuffy, it's their job to do that. I don't do that. They do that. No, I don't care. You get up and you get over there and you help them boys. He said, what would Clark say if he knew you sitting around somebody working like that? So he said, come to the house. Judy's going to fix some sandwiches and stuff for y'all. So instead of going out and hitting the highway and then going north and going back east, he wanted to go straight up this country road. We were going along there, and the farther we go, the higher the weeds are in the middle of the road. Pretty soon there's weeds not hitting on the hood as we was bending them over, and we was going all over the United States and parts of Canada in that truck. And we come up to this T, and I said, all right, Tuffy, which way now? And he's telling these big stories. And he looks to the right and he looks to the left and he says, where in the hell are we? I said, this is your country, not mine. He said, he laughed real big. He said, oh, turn right.
If you ever crack back out and need a roadie, I'll be there for you, Pake.
You mean musically or steer ropingly?
Either one.
Oh, either one.
Cody the roadie. My name
Cody
rhymes
the
with
roadie.
it perfectly. If it's music playing, I'll play backup triangle in the band for you after I'm roadieing.
Now, if you sing backup, will that be way back?
I ain't singing. I'll just be playing the triangle in the back.
Okay.
That's the only one that only instrument I mastered so
Hey, you
far.
might want to edit that James Maxwell story out of this deal.
Alrighty, you got it.
Now, I don't care. I mean, it don't shock my modesty. I mean, but if it's, I put it in my book, but you know your deal.
Oh, no, we're all good. We're all good, Pake.
All right, good.
We're all good.
Good. I mean, they say worse than that on TV, don't they?
For sure now. I can't believe what's on TV nowadays.
Me either. They say things on TV now that you wouldn't hear on Woodstock.
Richard Pryor wouldn't say some of the stuff they say on TV now.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you, Pake. We appreciate you doing this with us, and thank you so much for keeping the Western way of life alive down here.
Oh, you bet. You guys come back anytime.
Thank you.
Are you
Appreciate it.
booking out any shows right now, Pake?
Yes, I do one for electrical cooperative meeting in September in Kingfisher. I'm supposed to do a show in Mineral Wells, Texas, with some guys with the band, and things are starting to loosen up a little bit over the COVID thing, Jimbo. And it's still here, but it seems like people don't have their fear of it like they used to.
Right.
If they want to book you, how would they do it?
Call Pake McEntire, 918-625-5281, or my roadie, Cody.
That's right. Thanks, Pake.
Thank you, Cody. Thank you, Jimbo.
Thank you very
Jimbo.
much. Thank you.
See everybody next week right here on Cowboys of the Osage podcast. This is Cody the Roadie. It's been Jimbo and Pake. See everybody next week.